Ooh.
Hello!
Hey!
I'm David.
And I'm Ryan.
And Fairly Secret Music, I think this is called. I can't even remember anymore.
It's the name
right.
of your YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
You should have looked it up before we started.
I know. Before we started the second installment of our Marillion.
Yes. As I like to call it, the best installment.
Yes. I would say this is the even installment with the first four, but I would say sometimes this actually overshadows the first four to me, because of because of especially the second album. But we're gonna get to that.
Yeah, we got to do the first album first, which is actually the fifth album. So you're really confusing people.
I know. Okay, so
but I knew what you meant.
We got
the diehards out there knew what you were talking
about. They know. So between Clutching at Straws,
yes,
which was the last Fish album, technically,
yes.
Not including live albums, and this album, what happened?
It all fell apart. We talked about it's falling apart right on Clutching at Straws. Right? You can hear it. It's in the lyrics. It's even, like, I really think you can hear it in a less tangible way, but in the music and all of it, you can feel the tension in that record, which is about what's going on in their lives at the time. But they did have a very big, successful tour, although it wrapped in North America, which was a bummer for them. And
right
here in good old Minneapolis.
We took 15 people.
We talked about that last week. I said I had a buddy who's at that show, and he relayed kind of the story to me, which I paraphrased last week, but I did my best. But can you imagine? I mean, they were, millions, albums, Europe, they were headlining festivals, selling out, not stadiums, but
huge,
but big venues. They were a big band. And here they were just, they couldn't get.
They could sell out the Hammersmith.
Sure, absolutely. Well, they could always do that.
Yeah, but, I mean, you couldn't even sell out First Avenue here. So
you couldn't even get more than 20 folks to come to First Avenue. I mean, there was nobody there.
But, I mean,
there was nobody.
There are a lot of bands that can't sell out First Avenue too. So
but it was, I mean, it's not that was the strain. I mean, they went back to Europe where they're very popular, and so that's no problem. Their record company was setting themselves up with another superstar producer to make their next album together, which they tried to make. Bob Ezrin, who made, the Wall and Kisses Destroyer and stuff.
Oh, that's right.
And if you want to get a little more esoteric, Kansas is in the Spirit of Things. These are all concept albums.
Right.
Dave. So was the next album going to be another concept? Maybe.
Well, that's the thing, because you can listen to some of the ideas that became songs on this album with Fish singing lyrics from his first solo album as the demos for Clutching at Straws, too.
But everybody, the record company, I mean, even though Clutching didn't sell nearly as well as Misplaced, it didn't have the big hit on it. It still sold millions, and everyone was happy, and they were, all the outside forces. It wasn't like the record company wanted this, and their management wanted that. It was, it was that they broke apart because...
it was an internal...
Yeah. You can say creative differences, but it wasn't really creative. It was ego clashing,
right?
And it was really just one guy's ego, because these guys are not. The rest of the band, as we've learned, aren't real egotists.
No.
But they were given an ultimatum. I mean, a lot of stuff happened. There was a lot of substance stuff going on. He locked up all their music so they couldn't rehearse for a few days and then disappeared. Nobody knows why he did that.
I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, I mean, these are stories, and some of it's legends. So if you're like,
we don't know.
If you know the truth and that isn't it, I apologize. But these are some of the little things that leaked out. But the biggest thing that came out, and it came out much later because they didn't really talk about this at the time. Because both artists were still on EMI. They wanted...
You mean when he left?
When he left. The biggest reason he left was he gave them an ultimatum that he wanted such and such creative control over the band, and he wanted a bigger financial cut than the 1/5 he was getting. And that was the straw where they were dealing with all this other stuff, and finally said, well, no,
Well,
then leave.
So this is the first time I've heard of that.
And it's Pete Trewavas that told this story, of all people.
Really? Okay.
Yes. He's like, so then, of course, I mean, he said it in this nice British way.
Right.
Oh, so of course we said, well, then by all means, leave.
Right.
Okay.
I think if they would have taken a break at some time.
Well, Fish says that, but when you hear that part of it,
right?
Because when you just hear, oh, he's struggling, he's drinking too much, blah blah blah, it's like, sure, they could recover. But then he kind of recovered from that right away.
They recovered, yeah.
He didn't sober up right away, but he wasn't some guy who wasn't showing up for gigs or wasn't turning it on when the lights turned on or wasn't turning out albums pretty quickly with good material.
Right.
He did that in the future, so he could have done that with Marillion. That creative control thing, that's what he really wanted.
As a musician, somebody coming in and telling me, hey, this is what I need you to play, is very hard. So I can totally understand that, especially the level of creativity with that band.
I don't even think they minded that. I think that was part of the operating procedure for how they did albums. I just think for you to say, well, I
get more.
Yeah.
That's so. Well, if,
you're not equal partners in this.
Right.
So what he's saying is he wants to make a solo album. You can still be the backing band, but here's the deal.
Right.
And yeah, if they would have just said, oh, sure, we go ahead, make your solo album, get all this out of your system, we'll just be here for you when you get back, then yes, they really could have gotten and probably would have gotten back together. That's not a reasonable thing to ask.
No.
They sent him packing. There was some sense of relief when Fish wasn't around, but there was also a sense of what
the hell?
What now? I mean, the shoes somebody coming in has to fill are immense.
I wonder if it was that same kind of sense like when Dream Theater, when Portnoy put down hey, I want to take a year off, blah, blah, do all of this. And they're like, no, we need to carry on. And he's like, I'm just leaving then. Which, honestly, I think was his best choice, Portnoy, for. Not to talk about any other bands, but anyway. But
Dream Theater, baby.
Yep. Or Transatlantic or whatever, Flying Colors. And so let's talk about Marillion. So they go through.
I don't want to get into the politics of all that, or even what I think about those albums. Right. That's way too much to unpack. But the point you're making is true. It's true of all things. It's like, we got same thing, a bigger profile band than these little prog people. Although Dream Theater's they're a pretty big profile band.
Right.
Reasonably big. But a bigger one would be, when Styx broke up and finally went their separate ways. The leader, so to speak, of that band up to that point was sick. Couldn't tour. Couldn't really finish their album. Was having all these problems. And they basically said, well, we've got all these opportunities. Like, we've kind of never been more popular than we are right now.
Right.
We need to make the most of this. We're going to go do it without you.
What year was that?
Well, it's the late 90s.
Okay.
And I don't want to get into Styx either. I could talk about them for ages and ages. But
we could have a whole series of Styx.
But that was about, creative control to some degree, even though it wasn't. But it was, this was different. This was, he literally gave them an ultimatum, and they just said no.
Right.
And he sort of got what he wanted because he went off and made pretty good material, which we will speak about.
We are going to get to
continue.
Yep.
If these continue to get listened to and paid attention to you by you guys.
We got... even if they don't get paid attention to, I just enjoy.
We need to get this out of our system.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like,
I'm stunned by how many people sat through this whole thing.
Yeah, thank you so much for 2.5 hours of I would say this crap.
We're not off to a good start in terms of making this next show shorter. Actually.
So let's focus. So they go through, and I want to say thank you. What was the guy's name from Scotland who said he saw Fish and Marillion and he's really close? And
he asked about my movie podcast, which is called The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. I know that's pretty lame, but
we can put a link to it.
The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, and has an ampersand. It's literally, Spotify, Apple, it's everywhere you get podcasts. You can check that out. I thank you for asking, and we'll put some links down and stuff.
Yep.
Dave was a loyal listener of the Movie Show, Ryan. That's how he knew it would be okay to bring me on here, and I wouldn't just be a jerk.
Well, I wouldn't say loyal.
I wouldn't be
I would say I've watched your podcast as much as you've watched some of my videos.
Well, there you go.
So, yes. So
ladies and gentlemen.
We're equally failures as friends. But we talk about all this shit behind us.
The story of Marillion being left and finding a new lead singer is a fascinating one. We can't go into all the details, but here's a little Crib Notes version of it, at least. They put out word basically into the industry. They're looking for a new lead singer. Meanwhile, somewhere across England,
right. I'm gonna go out of shot for a second.
You're gonna go get something?
Yeah, keep going. There's a singer.
Yeah, a singer, a keyboard player, really,
in a band called
How We Live.
Yes,
that's a fantastic album, by the way.
Fine young gentleman.
When we get done with Fish, we'll do How We Live and Europeans and
H and
Ice Cream Genius and all that. Because those are fun to talk about too. Anyways, basically, he's a pop artist. He's been in 2 bands, one of which fell apart extremely dramatically, so he's certainly familiar with that.
That was Europeans.
And then Europeans had a spin-off band, him and the guitar player.
Colin Wurr,
that's right, started this band called How We Live. How We Live got full court press by Sony Music, big production, fantastic sounding album, but just people weren't into it for whatever reason. It didn't hit, didn't connect. It's sophistopop, I don't know what to call it. Yeah. But it's the furthest thing from, this guy's going to replace Fish.
You could actually, and I haven't listened to that a lot, correct me if I'm wrong, but you could kind of lump How We Live in that same kind of Spirit of Eden, laughingstock kind of talky kind of stuff.
No, it's much more like early talk. It's like talk.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Or it's like the poppier parts of Tears for Fears, or the more sophisticated songs by ABC.
So a singer that you would not expect to replace Fish.
A contemporary of theirs.
Right.
But yes. And it was very funny. He was during the holidays, his band, his second band had fallen apart. You can hear it in the songwriting. It's such a good album. He really put his all into the thing. As a keyboard player, as just a recording artist, he laid it all on the line, and it didn't connect with an audience.
I'm gonna confess, I've only listened to that like once or twice.
That's such a good album.
I
don't want to sell it to hardcore Marillion fans if they haven't listened to it at this point. They're not gonna. Right. But it's such a good album.
We'll talk about it during the second album.
But it's a 1987 keyboard heavy, echoey, drummy pop album. It is what it is. It's not like Laughingstock in that way, where you listen to it and it sounds like this crazy thing out of time. You know what I mean? Like his later stuff sort of does.
Yeah, where it has absolutely no equal.
Right.
Where that is,
this sort of sounds like this. This sort of sounds like that.
Yeah. Okay. See, I'm basing everything on a couple songs that I remember.
He was hanging out at his publishers during the holidays when everybody. He describes it as everybody was drinking and partying, and he came in while they were all kind of asleep on couches and stuff, and was like, he just wanted to do something for a while to pay the bills, basically, to keep getting paid. So he's like, is there anything I can do? And the guy who runs the place was like, Marillion needs a new lead singer. And he's like, no, not like that. Like, can I do some copying or some typing or something? Like, I'm just here.
Oh, nice.
I just need an escape. I'm not joining Marillion. Like, that's the last thing I'm going to do.
Right. Next thing you know,
and this guy's okay, but he sent his tape off to them.
Right.
Without him knowing or without him even asking.
Yep.
And as they were going through the tapes and holding auditions, and the guy from Galahad auditioned, the lead singer, Alan Reed, the second lead singer of Palace, really thought he was going to get that gig. And he wouldn't have been the worst choice. But it was all these neo-prog guys and Marillion ripoff, like Fish ripoff guys who were coming out of the woodwork.
And they had already had that. And they had already had...
Well, and I think they just knew that the danger for them, if they would have got some Fish-alike, who was like Fish, but wasn't at all like Fish, was going to be a failure on their part. They were looking for something different.
Right.
But they didn't know what they were looking for either. They couldn't just say, we want something like this. They just they're listening to tapes. So this tape comes up, and the tape included, just for fun, because I know... The tape included an early version of Easter, basically the first part of Easter.
Okay.
A demo of it. It included, on the How We Live album, it included Games in Germany.
Okay.
And from the first Europeans album, it included Kingdom Come.
Okay.
And it was Ian, although they were all listening and stuff.
He went down and got the tapes, didn't he? Every day.
Kind of, yeah. And he was kind of like the first guy to say, we're going to listen to this, and we're going to do that, or this is the guy, or he was the first filter, basically.
Right.
So,
sorry, people. I have just got to make sure. We are declining.
We're shooting this on a phone, and it's weird. Phones people still call you on them. They're not just cameras and portals to the internet.
Right.
Every once in a while you get a call, and you're like, what the hell?
Well, I understand my buddy not calling, but my wife knows we're doing this video.
Yeah, but she doesn't.
Yeah, she's not thinking about that.
Anyway.
Hopefully she's not, like, in a ditch somewhere.
Ian's like, this is the guy.
Right.
That's how he tells the story anyway. Yeah. I mean, whether he thought that or, like I said, it's a little bit legend. But this has been well known for a long time because this is the side of the story that's on the Ipanema to Stoke Row video.
Yeah, if you don't already know that, watch that video. It's fantastic.
It's this era of the band is really, really well documented in it, and this new lead singer finding his way in this crazy band it captures a lot of the spirit of that. Plus, it has just 2 killer versions of early Holidays in Eton songs.
And they add that O Come Emmanuel to the beginning of season end, which is beautiful. You know, like that?
No, I love it. I love it. Yeah. I love it. As a matter of fact, I don't. It's hard to hear the song without it. It's so perfect.
Yep.
That's Steve Hogarth's favorite Christmas carol. So, anyway, Ian decides this is the guy, so they start sending out the feelers. They think he's auditioning to be in Marillion. He doesn't even know.
He doesn't even know.
They're listening to him. And he just, in his head, it's not his kind of music.
Right.
He's certainly familiar with them. Everyone in the UK would be at this point. They were at top of the world.
Right.
As much as you get.
Did he think, oh God, how am I going to sing all those?
He, if you know his personality, he just avoided the thing. The guy's calling him saying, well, we should set you up or you should go in. They're interested. And he's just like he's hiding, basically. He's not returning his calls. He's thinking about moving to the country and becoming a milkman. He's really considering these things.
Dude went in for a part-time job. Yeah. Got a full-time job.
He went into his publisher to
32 years.
Yeah. He was asked, I mean, in the interim, he played keyboards on both of Tony Child's first 2 albums. Those are fantastic, and the synths on them are great. So he'd been kicking around. He plays keyboards on a couple of the albums, which are fantastic. But these are the circles he's traveling in. Right. Art rock, sophistopop circles, just like he is. He's not unpretentious at all.
Right.
But he just is in a very, very different way than Fish is. Fish is this balladeer at the bar, who's got a story to tell you. Right. And H isn't. He's this guy who's noodling around in the background and hiding, and suddenly this voice comes out of this dude, and it sort of stuns you.
We should tell you what his name is.
I kind of did, but it's Steve Hogarth.
Right.
Who it's hard to, because there's 2 Steves now.
We call him H. Everybody calls him H.
Everybody calls him H, but I think, I think that's really just so we're clear in writing kind of thing.
So we'll say Rothery and H or whatever, but
yeah. So. Or we'll just use their full names if we're going to talk about him. But he's the second Steve. Anyway, he's hiding. He doesn't want to have anything to do. He doesn't want to join an established band. He certainly doesn't want to join a weird prog rock band that supposedly sounds just like Genesis. Like that's the last thing he wants.
Right.
The is asking him to go on tour with him. This huge tour that's going to take him away, where he just gets to play the keyboards, do a little background singing, and just kind of hide and do his thing in what he says is one of the coolest bands on the planet, which they are. They're super chic and cool. Instead, he's getting told he should come meet what he calls the most uncool band on the planet. He's saying this years and years later after it's worked out. But it's just a funny way that he puts it. They are kind of the most uncool.
They were. I mean, to us, they were.
The guy who convinced him, Prog Nuts, if you like a good prog deep dive, is a fellow by the name of Daryl Way. Ian Mosley played with Daryl Way in a band called Daryl Way's Wolf, but Daryl's more famous for being in Curved Air and a bunch of bands of that type. He got around. Daryl was H's drinking buddy in their neighborhood together, and he as a joke was like, he's saying, apparently my guy sent my tapes to Marillion, and now they're telling me, I got what's his face from Bell. I was waiting for me. I'm going to do that instead. He goes, Daryl Way, who knew Ian Mosley, said, no, he goes, whatever, but you should at least meet them because this is a group of guys that are really, really good people.
Right. Nice.
If you saw him in the early days, he wore these little ties around his fingers. He had been cut by his former bass player who attacked him, tried to kill him. And he had all these bandages. He cut his fingers cut up. He's a keyboard player.
Right.
I mean, when he joined Europeans, he was singing, and he sang even on their first album, but he was their keyboard player. That was his main job. So he got his fingers all sliced up by this guy, and he used to wear these little ribbons around his fingers to remind him how rough life used to be. But what he needed was somebody he liked and trusted saying, Marillion is good people.
Right.
So whatever else you think...
You're not going to get cut up.
Right.
Right.
But that was important to him. He's
Right.
not just going to join in any old thing.
Right.
He's done that before, and it's kind of worked out. It got him gigs and got him work and got his career going, but it had this horrible event that sort of scarred him in it as well, literally and
I did
figuratively.
not know that. Was that in the Europeans? Or what band was that?
I don't want to say because he never says. But who could it have been? There was no credited bass player on How We Live other than a session guy.
Right.
And Europeans fell apart, except they didn't. That's How We Live's basically just Europeans with the problem members out of it.
Taken. Go away.
It's a much more poppy album. Europeans are very jangly, new wavy kind of.
Look up official video Europeans. You will understand why.
Animal Song. It was on. It was on Beavis and Butthead. It's so weird.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic. I love Europeans. So anyway, I love Steve Hogarth. He's my kind of guy. But he starts working with him. He starts singing with him. They hand him lyrics. This fellow by the name of this comedian / essayist guy, John Elmer, was faxing them lyrics, and they were already working up songs at the time.
So I thought Helmer came with H rather than
Helmer was replacing Fish so that they would have something
to
work on.
Right.
And that partnership lasts these 4 albums, it was a pretty great one.
He is fantastic.
Yeah. So anyway, they're giving him these early lyrics that John Helmer wrote to the opening track on Season's End, which you're looking at, and have been this whole time. Well, we haven't been talking about.
Right, we haven't been talking about it. At least you know what
the opening track. Called King of Sunset Town.
Yep.
And they just handed him the lyrics and said, "Well, just sing along with us. We're just playing this stuff." And he's like, "What do you want me to do? I don't have a melody." And he said, "Just this is how we do it."
Right.
Yeah, figure it out. Here are some words. Just kind of.
What I do.
Yeah.
I got lyrics. Finally, yes, I have lyrics. Okay, come on, let's go.
He's used to sitting down at the piano,
writing,
and
he's
writing.
A songwriter.
Exactly.
Right.
He's a songwriter.
I'm a drummer / vocalist who goes, oh shit, I gotta sing lyrics now.
And Marillion is essentially, at least in their creative process, they're a jam band who really, really polish up nicely when it comes time to actually record the album.
Yep.
But it's tapes and walls of just trying everything and just trying stuff and just, so he wasn't really used to that creative process, but he came in at a good time. Some of the stuff was already structured. There was already these sort of chorus, verse, some of it had been put together. And then he had stuff that he'd been working on. Easter was one of them.
Right.
And older stuff that he brought along in this little red bucket that he used to carry around with him with a bunch of cassettes in it.
And Berlin was already part of one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fish had actually put...
Yes. And John Helmer took that Fish demo and wrote different lyrics over it.
Yeah, and he
So Berlin really had nothing to do with H. This is as close to a Fish-era Marillion song as you will find.
And I think he did, Family Business lyrics over that?
I'd have to go look to check, but it's funny. It's a funny melding of the two.
Yeah.
But that's in the rearview mirror.
Yep, rearview mirror.
King of Sunset Town's the opening song on Season's End.
Oh, yes. Okay.
It worked out.
We're getting to the album,
Well,
people.
it worked out. They got along. They were nice guys.
Right.
This was a fun, creative thing. They were interested in his ideas, so he was going to be an equal member, and he was joining a band where he
got 1/5 of the royalties.
Not an even cut, but in his mind, he's doing 1/5 of the work. It really is this,
Right.
Even though he and Colin were a co-writing team and everything, there was a lot of that, the lyrics, the melodies that was on H to do on How We Live.
Right.
This was different. This was a community that he was being a part of, and it did work musically.
Yep.
So he turned down that opportunity to go on tour with this hit band, and left his sort of session keyboard playing behind. Marillion didn't need a keyboard player, although he's plenty. You hear him aplenty on Marillion songs, which is, that's
especially on the stripped down stuff.
Especially on the stripped down stuff. That's a testament to, that's his writing process, but that's a testament to Mark Kelly as well, who was not intimidated by the fact that a very accomplished keyboard player was coming into the band. H is really, really talented at that. When you listen to the Europeans albums, and when you listen to the Tony Childs albums, I mean, it's...
And I have a feeling if he was a equally accomplished guitarist, you would have a lot of possibly dual guitar parts on there. That's the beautiful thing about this band is it's not a bunch of egos. At this point, it's not a bunch of egos.
Really, at any point, I mean, everyone has their egos, and everyone who's together in a relationship, a marriage, a band, whatever it is, for as long as these guys have been. I mean, they're clashes and fights and stuff, but
from this album on, though, it seems more like a harmonious marriage rather than a tempestuous.
And harmony's a really good thing, because as you pointed out, on the Phish albums, there's not a lot of harmony. There's tons of harmony on these albums. Tons of it, right from the get-go.
Right.
And that's a different thing that he brings to the party. Plus, his voice is just different. Plus, he's not an 8-foot tall, huge Scottish guy. He's this little 4'9", just tiny little dude with sort of diminutive, very polite British way of speaking and stuff. And I mean, he's the anti-Phish. He's just they're the yin and yang of the human race. You know what I mean?
Put that fish away.
That's a cliche I trot out a lot more than I should. But I mean, they're just so different. They're photo negatives of each other, completely opposite of each other.
Yep.
Speaking of photo negatives, I couldn't remember what Chris Kimsey, you put me on the spot and said, what did he produce? And I was like, I don't know, stuff.
So you looked it up?
Well, I knew. I just had to kind of catch my breath and figure it out. Yeah, he produced a bunch of Peter Frampton albums. He produced a bunch of Peter Tosh albums. There's some differences. Right. And most famously, he produced Tattoo You and Emotional Rescue by Rolling Stones. So he was...
Right. So he was
a guy. He was not...
A guy. Right.
He was absolutely a guy at that point and continued to be.
He wasn't... Yeah.
Who produced this thing before we get too into
Nick Davis.
I kept bringing him up. I knew it was another Nick in there somewhere.
Right. Nick Davis and Marillion. And it was recorded and mixed by him, too. So, King of Sunset Town. You said to me, and there was the first time I ever even thought of this, was King of Sunset Town starts out, what is it, like a minute?
It's well over a minute.
Before you
Part of it's just this quiet drone. It's one of these, it slowly fades up, and then the music itself slowly fades up to a crescendo. Right. But it's almost 2 minutes of Marillion without the new lead singer.
Right. And it's like, okay, here's what you're getting. We're still the band you know and love, but then a ragged man comes shuffling through, comes in, and you're like, okay,
this is totally different than what we're used to.
And I love, I bought this the day it came out on cassette.
Did you?
And I listened to it religiously. And every time I was at work, and the first time I was at work...
There's going to be some worship going on during this episode, that's for sure.
I don't think this is going to be any less than 2.5 hours. So, the first time
At least this week, we don't have to be insecure about it. You guys all... At least the ones who spoke up gave us permission to keep doing these like this, so that's what you're going to get.
I had my buddy Phil said, got through it, finally finished it. He watched it in chunks, and then he's like, not too long at all. Everything was amazing, and I loved it. So he is just, I think, getting into Marillion. Maybe. I can't remember. Somebody told me they were just getting into Marillion. But King of Sunset Town, the first time I ever listened to this, I was doing janitor work at a place called Homeward Bound, and they would let me listen to headphones.
Sure.
And I remember in the janitor room, headphones on, I'm still filling the bucket, and just this thing just building and building, and you know, just that first, like,
it builds and builds, and then it explodes. That's just a Marillion thing, and then it cuts way back, and you just get the... And then a little fellow comes up to tell you a story. It really is. The song starts like that.
Right.
It's the song's a song about an old man telling like a child or another person a story. That's literally what it is. The King of Sunset Town is this old guy who's this sage old guy who's gonna give you a little bit of his wisdom. That's how Helmer wrote it. H made it his own by sprinkling in these Tiananmen Square references into it, which makes it more than just a story. The Puppet King on the 4th of June is definitely a...
Oh, is it?
That's a that's a Tiananmen Square reference.
I thought it was kind of more storytelling about this.
Well, like town. I said,
it's cryptic storytelling.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's neat. You can take it. If you don't catch those references, then the song isn't about that. And if you do, then it very much has to be about that. It's basically
right.
That.
I'm glad.
Basically, is Deckard a replicant or not? I mean, you really can argue both sides very, very strongly based on the evidence, but because it seems to take both sides, and this song does that too. And again, the Helmer Hogarth relationship is fantastic. Because Helmer's
right.
He's faxing them stuff. He's not in the room even. He has nothing to do with their creative process.
Do you know?
And they just take it, and if they can work with it, great. If they can't, fine. If
so
you
he
want
never
to change
heard music before this. He's just sending them lyrics.
That's not necessarily true. I think with Berlin, the music was sort of worked out because they were working on it with Fish.
Right. Okay.
Season's End was kind of already worked out. Some of these songs were already kind of worked out.
Right.
King of Sunset Town, to some degree, was already worked out without that huge intro.
This time, we're not going to forget it. We are going to say which song we would take off this album and put a bonus track on, because this album has some just killer bonus track.
Yeah.
So
we are still in the era where the B-sides are fully formed, produced by the producer, could easily have been on the album if they just made different choices or whatever.
There's a singles box set from this era for these 4 albums. So okay, so we got King of Sunset Town, just an amazing opener, good way to introduce this.
Yeah, it's this ballad that's evocative of all this abandoned town with this old guy telling you the story, and it's wonderful, and yet the chorus of it is anthemic and massive, which is what you kind of want for this sort of tune. Yep. And then it's just really, really lovely keyboards in the middle of it.
What is gone is the kind of Market Square Heroes Garden Party Incommunicado thing, where they take an idea and then they kind of just recycle it again. Yeah. From this album onward, I can't really say, yeah, that one's like that. He's gonna prove me wrong.
But in general, I think you're right. There aren't these archetypes of things that have been successful for them that they fall back on again and again.
Here's the political song. Here's the depressing song. Here's the happy.
Here's the angry end of a relationship song.
Right. Here's the crowd pleasing.
It has a crazy unpredictability because of that. And if you didn't like King of Sunset Town, because King of Sunset Town's designed to say, look, it's cool.
Right.
We're still here.
We're here.
You know what I mean?
We're a little different now.
They even hold and even in concert, they opened up with King of Sunset Town, and they did that deliberately. The lights come up, and then the droning of the synths and everything, and then the band sort of comes out, and they start playing one by one. That's how the song builds. Then you get, the lights come up, the song's rocking, and you still haven't seen the new guy. And he comes shuffling out and starts singing once the song calms down a little bit.
I can't remember. Was he playing a lot of keyboards during this first tour?
We'll talk about that. He was playing these. They created these MIDI gloves.
Well, that was for holidays, right?
No, it was for this tour.
Was it for this tour? I thought it was for holidays.
He played the beginning, like they dropped this big piece of glass down in front of him, and he'd take out these MIDI gloves and these little MIDI triggers, so he could play on the glass, but behind the glass, which had this weird.
Right.
Like Laurie Anderson, sort of, like super art rock sort of.
Right. Or like those CSI shows where they're like this on the fake machine.
Yeah. So it was weird. I'd never seen anything like it. They asked this genius that they knew to create these gloves for him so that he could be a front man and not be behind keyboards.
Right.
And
he can push the.
Yeah. He could play them on his chest.
Yeah. He didn't have it on every finger, so he could kind of. I think his thumb was still open to be able to push.
I'm not really sure how that works.
I think he on the Stoke Row to Ipanema.
But he played a bunch of extra keyboard parts that way.
They were pre-programmed.
Yeah,
so it was like a note or a chord.
It was a little riff where he had enough fingers to do it, and then he would learn how to do it.
Yeah.
He's not just a singer. He's a very, very gifted musician, so he's figured out how to do that and even work on programming them and stuff.
Yep.
Being a keyboard player in the 80s, I mean, just being able to play or being a really good player is part of it, but more necessary is getting into the guts of the keyboards, figuring them all out, programming the sounds, making the sounds unique to your song. There's just a lot that goes into being a really, really good one.
You didn't play keyboards, did you?
Sure.
You did, okay.
As best I can. I'm not as good as the guys in this band. I'm not as good as the guys in any band you've ever heard. That's why I'm talking on an opinion YouTube video instead of out playing music and being awesome. Dave, of course, does both.
I was just gonna say I play drums, but I'm still doing this damn videos. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
let's go to Easter.
Easter, holy good gravy!
What?
If you're new
to
Marillion, Easter is one of their all-time best songs. They still play it for the encores and the concerts. I mean, it's absolutely beloved. And it's genius. Yeah. It was one of the singles from this album. It was the third single from the album, but nevertheless, it was one of those third singles where they just thought so much of the song, even though they didn't really see it as being a hit. They put it out anyway. And Easter's just wonderful. It's an acoustic guitar ballad. H wrote it kind of himself, the first part. And then the band wrote this transition into kind of a different song. So you have this 3-part thing. You got a beautiful ballad about the troubles in Ireland, essentially. It's mournful and it's haunting and gorgeous. And then you've got this progression. I'll just call it that for fun. But it changes and it keeps changing and it's turning into something else. And this we've heard on Marillion album after Marillion album. So this is a great melding of, I brought this to the party and the rest of the band saying, and then we'll do this. And then they come back together at the end where they're all writing something new together for the first time. And it's the magic of Marillion. And he must have felt, I've never heard Steve talk about it, but he must have felt this. Look at what we did.
Right.
You know what I mean? This song really is them. But look at how free I am. I can do whatever I want. Like, this song becomes a different song at the end. And there's no guy from, Epic Records sitting in here going, it's got to be 3 minutes and a half. And there's no bad breathing down my neck going, what's the single going to be?
Right. At that point, they were given a little bit more freedom. I'm sure there still was some guy from...
Well, they still signed to a big record label, but the way they describe it is they were nervous about the new singer too. But the record company, once they started hearing the results were going through the roof, they were thrilled. They're like, we can still sell this. Like, the fans are going to love this. They didn't really get it.
I have a friend who is a big Fish era Marillion fan. Because he's also a big Peter Gabriel fan too. So... yeah, it's understandable.
I'm a big
never really
Fish era fan and a big Peter Gabriel fan.
He never really gave this era a chance. I remember when Holidays...
He's a big Peter Gabriel era Genesis fan.
Right. I remember...
Because if you're a Peter Gabriel fan, this is going to be more your cup of tea than Fish is going to be.
Yeah.
But if you're a big Selling England by the Pound fan, well, okay, then...
Right.
Then just listen to Grendel, man. Here's your jester costume.
He never gave this a chance, and I think it is an absolute shame that
it's so
Fish fans didn't give it a chance.
But this is a good leaping off point. I mean,
it is.
I don't have a problem with them not liking it. Everybody likes what they like. I love it, but
to not give it a chance, to hear one song and not give it a chance. He said, "Oh, is that Marillion when they turned into Foreigner?" I'm like, "Well, but Foreigner are great, so give it a listen." But another friend who's never really
that's a completely dismissive comment. These guys sold out.
Right.
Which Easter is not a sellout. King of Sunset Town is not a sellout. Berlin is not a sellout.
They got a singer that was different than what everybody else knew.
And he was a pop singer. And when he wrote a song from scratch on his own, it was, at least during this era, it was very poppy. So I can kind of understand where they're coming from, but...
Right. So, we got Easter. We're going to, do we want to try to speed up, or are we good?
No, we'll speed up a little bit. I mean, this is the foundation of a whole new thing, and Easter comes second, and it just happens to be one of the awesomest Marillion songs of all time. What are you going to do? We're slaves to the content, really.
Right. The ending of that song just...
What would you do? Make a stone of your heart.
Will you set things right? You tear them apart.
When you sleep at night. It's a stunning song, and when you see it performed live, it's amazing. And it did a lot of Phish fans did jump the boat. But that song, Sunset Town, this album, this new singer, even this singer singing That Time of the Night and singing the stuff that they were doing on that tour,
right,
slowly through the night, won them over. They said each place was like a mission for us to prove to them that we were awesome still, because we were so proud of what we were doing. So again, there's no shame on them. There's no trepidation. They went out. They, H is a big ball of nerves, and he's a very internalized guy and very poetic, and was freaked about facing these people. I mean, when he first had to do that, he said when it was different than just hear these nice guys and we're making this great stuff. When I first had to do it in front of people, he was terrified, and he claims he never really got over it until the early 2000s. So none of these albums represent H that feels free amongst Marillion fans. He feels put upon, basically, and feels the weight of that responsibility. It's sort of the opposite of what he wanted in his life at this point. But the music was so great.
Right. I just realized that we could just look at each other like in the mirror.
In the actual mirror? I can't. Yeah. I can see you in the mirror.
I can see you in the mirror.
It's a very elaborate setup for a video done with a cell phone.
We have the camera where we can't actually see
this. You're not going to tell them all. They don't care.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fun. And then we have a big mirror behind us, so we can actually see the
uninvited guest. Is the
uninvited guest? Okay.
The love of God.
I did not like this for the longest time. Like, I would say the first...
This is mostly a Helmer lyric, too, but they collaborated a little bit on it. Uninvited Guest I liked it. I mean, of the two rockin' songs, I like it best.
I do. But
I know what you're saying. It's a little weird.
Yeah. But, you know what kind of won me over? Is the part where, if you watch the video, where he says, when you fly to the other side of the world, I'll always find...
I reserved a seat behind you. We can talk about old times.
When he kind of goes like that in the video, but there's a spot where Ian hits a China symbol and H kind of pretends like the China symbol is just him. They're little. I love bookmarks and things like Land Down Under. The one time he goes, yeah. You're just like you're waiting for that little part.
Yeah. It's neat. It's the uninvited guest, and then he rattles off all these sort of poetical examples of what that would be. And the video is H in black, tormenting. It's like the black and white swan from the ballet, basically. It's evil H torturing, other H, and it's fun. It's goofy. It's silly. The video's not great. It doesn't really help the song, although it doesn't hurt it.
It doesn't hurt it like other.
If you want to watch a video or you want to show if you want to get people into H-era Marillion by showing them a video, Easter is a much better choice. That's extremely classy. It's beautiful. He has an amazing coat on in that. Yeah. That coat is fantastic. Yeah. The coat is great. I have something similar to that up on the stairs. You should have wore that tonight. I know. Nobody really would have seen it in the video. No, they wouldn't have. So this is the more poppier song. This was harder. This was the second single from the album. Yeah. And what was the first? Hooks and You. Oh, okay. We will get to that. Sure. The record company was drooling over that. You're going to make $1 million. Of course, they were thinking. Yeah. It's the. We'll get to it. We'll get to it when we get to it. This is the second. Uninvited Guest is the second rockinest song on here. That's sort of consistently rocking throughout. It's a 4.5 minute song. It's 5 minutes ish. It's a song, and it does make a decent single. And they do trot it out, and it's a fun song live because H's sort of dramatics, like he really gets into it, and it's fun to watch. Does he kind of do the yin and yang? No, but he kind of does evil H for the audience, basically. Right. That's how he does it in concert. And it's fun, and it's still a fun song to hear. And if you don't like it, it's over in 5 minutes. Right, and it's a lot of energy for 5 minutes too. Right, and they even say we've got so many long, slow, brooding sort of things that they maybe have levels and layers to them. But we really need a few. When you got to come back out after they've been cheering for you for 6 minutes, you got to hit them with something. They don't want you can't just start. Well, and that's when they bring out. So they're always looking for what are our upbeat songs, and there's there's a lot in this era, but as time has gone on, there's not that many, honestly.
Right. No.
So,
and newer stuff.
Uninvited Guest is fun. The next song is this title track, Season's End.
Side one closer if you had.
Yep, side one closer if you had the record. That's right. It's an 8-song album, like a lot of their albums have been in the past. It sort of, I don't want to get into comparisons.
Well, are we saying 8 songs without the bonus track?
Yeah.
Which the CD and the cassette always had the bonus track.
Correct.
I don't think the vinyl had it.
Right. So if we're talking sides and we're talking albums, we're talking 8 songs for this.
Well, we are talking 9 though, because
we'll make those distinctions. But Season's End ends the first side, and it's a great first side ender. You know,
basically about
as the grooves are getting faster. It's this mellow song about basically about climate change and
global warming.
But it's not a preachy song at all.
No.
It's like a eulogy for the earth.
Yep. Yeah, kind of.
Or for England in particular, because it has this very English imagery in it.
Yep.
Getting close to Season's End, I heard somebody say that it might never snow again in England.
Right.
It's just really, really beautiful song that I love, and it's got this really great, again, the echoey, that echoey reverb sort of tinny guitar sound of Rothery's. You know, it's just.
Right.
I love that sound. I don't know what it is or how you do it, but we talked about it a little bit last week with the comparisons to U2, but it's not U2. It's this gorgeous, beautiful thing. That song is loaded with that.
It's very acoustic, too.
Yes.
At the beginning. I skipped this because I wanted to hear Berlin.
But it's not acoustic guitar at the beginning. It's electric guitar played through a filter in the style of an acoustic guitar. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I hear when I hear it.
I was going to listen to this.
And so much of his stuff is that. It's this electric guitar. I listen to every song.
No, so remember before.
You were already listening to them.
I already listened to all 4 of these and kind of created thoughts. The main thoughts that I have are for the next 2 albums. But
Season's End is glorious. It as Gabe pointed out, it starts out with this drone. I call it a drone. It's a keyboard drone. Right. And then your baritone. He's really a baritone singer, which is weird because he sings incredibly high. He flips back and forth between his sort of baritone chest voice into his head voice all the time, and his head voice is impressively powerful.
Which is and he kind of, you know who reminds me of H is, have you ever heard Shearwater?
No.
That band? I should let you hear them because he's got. It's almost the best way to describe it is somebody who sings really high, but has this kind of lowness to it. And, he's got a very, I wish we could play samples.
He's got a very, very, in my opinion, a very, very unique voice in rock music.
You cannot go, hey, that Marillion singer sounds like.
Once you've spent some time with him, he is the sound that you will first be sure you are listening to Marillion at this stage.
Yep.
Season's End's wonderful. That keyboard drone with him singing over the top of it of O Come Emmanuel, and turning it into this haunting Christmas carol. Right. It's just with the snowflakes on the album cover and all of it. It's just it's a really stunning tune. I love it.
And the way it ends is very Marillion. Yeah. Because they have the regular body of the thing, and then you think it's fading out, and then you get this.
Yep. And then just
and
that's all it is.
Yeah, it's all it is, and it's measures of 7 of all things, but
that it gets built and layered upon and built up until it's just.
But it never. They never make it heavy or explode.
No. They're just doing more music at the end of the song because it's awesome.
It's so freaking great. It's so
Again,
great.
we talked about dynamics, but Marillion is the freedom to, here's more Season's End.
Yep. Yeah.
You haven't heard this before, but it doesn't matter. It fits here.
Right.
We did what we needed to make it fit, and now we can do whatever we want with it.
Right.
That's progressive rock. I mean, that's the spirit of what it's supposed to be.
Right.
And
they are indeed progressing past what they used to be too. So
really cool.
And I think it's a testament to their fans that they let them carry on. And
well, they say that all the time. They say it's, you know, we're subsidized by this group of incredibly loyal people, this weird, diverse international group of people who encourage us to do whatever we want, to try whatever we can. That is an accepting, safe place to be musically whatever. And that's a big part of their magic. And then a lot of bands are like, it's a creative process. Creativity is magic. Right. But, you know, Marillion fans really do. They don't care if the structure's there. They don't care if there's a chorus to the song. They don't care if it's 4 songs smashed into one. And those are some of their favorite ones. They don't care if it's 20
new album.
Exactly.
Right.
Or really the last couple albums have been that multi-structured stuff. Almost exclusively, not completely, but almost exclusively.
So I've never seen Marillion.
Seen them twice.
You've seen them twice.
But I've never seen Phish.
So here's the thing. If they come at least to Chicago, we have to
go. Church of the Cosmic Skull's coming to St. Paul in August.
I am going to that. I didn't know you would go to that. You want to go?
Did you already get tickets?
No, not yet.
Yeah, give me one. I'll go.
Okay.
Unless there's like some crazy COVID business or something.
No.
In which case, I'll still pay for the ticket. So yes, when you get tickets to it, which should be soon because I think they're available.
Yeah.
They're playing the Turf Club. Anyway, that's not Marillion, but that is exciting.
Yeah.
Because they have virtually no following here, really, and yet here they come, and
they're like ELO for the new age. Really, is what that's the way
Is that a good comparison? I mean, that's there, but they're so much more than that. They're everything, and that's what's great about them.
Yeah.
We can't talk about church.
Anyway, okay, so we have Season's End, then we get Holloway Girl, which I haven't listened to these lyrics for a long time.
He was driving by on a bus or in a train or something, and he saw that the woman's prison, Holloway Women's Prison, and there was he saw this sort of interaction between this woman and this guard or whatever, and it basically says it right in the song. The hand of justice pulled her back inside.
Right.
And H's weird way into that was he sings her this anthem about how you're going to be free someday. It's really like a hang in there, girl. I mean, it's not like that because it's this really dramatic, intensely emotional thing where he's really wailing in this song. The chorus to Holloway Girl I adore. And the bass is, I love that. That bass line is fantastic.
I've listened to this album since 91, or whenever 90 did
89.
Was it 89?
Yep.
Oh, okay. And
so if you bought it on the day it came out, or it probably came out in America a little later. 89.
But I forget that he's probably doing slap. I don't know if he ever does much slapping but he's no Larry Graham.
The song's full of imagery, which they're so great at, and the song, and the other thing that H is great at, and we won't get into too much of it here because there's a whole album that's literally an album of empathy. It's an album looking at a weird slice of life from somebody else's shoes, and that's kind of what this is. All this really is H, the guardian angel, singing to this woman in this woman's prison that one day freedom will knock down your door. So hold on.
Today I'm having a hard time not singing the parts.
You already sang one of the parts. I know. So see you in court, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, our first one's still up.
It's just it's a really fantastic song. It's a short song. It doesn't feel like it would be a single, but it's anthemic and gorgeous, and it's affirming. It's everything I like about sort of early H with Marillion albums. And like I said, it really does. It's part of a puzzle that builds to this their third album, their Misplaced Childhood, if you will.
Right.
The next song is Berlin, which we've already mentioned a bunch of times.
Oh my God, it's so good. Especially there's a part in it where he's saying oh God,
there's a big giant saxophone solo.
There's a saxophone solo, and then he sings this part where he sings, "Someone got stranded in no man's land," and to sing along with that. It's hard to sing along to that whole section without losing either your voice or your breath.
If you're a Phish fan, and I remember, when I got into Marillion, it was a couple of years later, but this all was fresh enough, and the change was fresh enough that you would see people discussing this. Berlin is the song that Phish fans, at least during this era, things may have changed through time, but most tolerated. Even, you know what I mean? The long-term Phish fans really, really loved Berlin. Berlin was written almost entirely without H. H put in the vocal melody, and you could tell that's the part he owns of it, because that's very much him. But the lyrics he didn't really write, other than adding a few of his own. And musically, the thing was kind of a finished thing.
Well, so this is the only song that, this is the only song on this album where you can go, oh, this is kind of the Forgotten Songs White Russian
Incubus. Or,
because it's all about the Berlin Wall, basically. And
but it's about this guy living this life. I mean, it's still, it's a very personal song. It is political.
When they turned off the guns and his fingers uncurled, he was holding a photograph of a Berlin party girl.
That's the last line of the song.
That's the reason he attempted to go over the wall and got shot. And
it's really cool. That's a really, really cool song. And during the Borderline acoustic gig, I don't remember before which song it is, but you hear there's this old school fan about who's like, "Hi, Steve, play Berlin." They're like sitting up there with acoustic guitars in their lap.
Yeah,
seated.
not a.
They weren't going to play Berlin.
No, they're not an acoustic. After you, but no.
but it's funny to me. So then there's a bonus track here, but let's skip that and save that to the end, because
are we gonna?
Yeah, okay. we'll talk about it. I mean, we'll talk about it with the B-sides. It was the B-side to Hooks and You.
Okay, so we had Hooks and You, the most rockinest song on this album.
Because I still think, After You to me is part of the album, but to me it's kind of not part of the album. It really is a bonus track.
See, that's the thing. It's always been on every version I've had.
Yeah, me too.
Because I didn't listen to the vinyl until years and years later.
Me too. I just want to be a purist about it.
Okay. We're going Hooks and You, baby.
I don't disagree with you. I just think we got to choose. Let's choose the pure way of purity. Of the original LP.
So you're saying this is puritanical?
Not hardly. This is the least puritanical Marillion song to date. Maybe not the least. Maybe I am your Antichrist.
Our listing of the songs.
Phish claims to be the Antichrist in their very first song.
He does. So. Okay, so Hooks and You, the lead-off single, right?
Yeah.
And the song that it's either up to Hooks and You
or were doing this
Alloway Girl.
They were doing this rocking out
that I would
thing that normally wouldn't be encouraged. H encouraged this song. I mean, he didn't create this riff. He heard them doing it, but he was like, "This is great. This rocks. You guys rock." You know what I mean? It's like, this is not what he's listening to Berlin and King of Sunset Town and Season N up to this point.
And you have Easter, so you have so many. They needed us. This is their incommunicado.
They can rock out. It is incommunicado. That's a good comparison, but it isn't anywhere near as clever as incommunicado, and it doesn't have the whittly solos.
But it's the pumpy, jumpy song.
It doesn't quite sound like Foreigner, but it really does sound like an AOR.
But it's the Garden Party incommunicado, and so when we said this doesn't follow that, there's already been Berlin, which is the quote-unquote political one, and then you got the happy, jumpy, uppy, down thing. I feel like the guy on Miranda who goes, I gotta like the rumpity pumpity.
It's a riff rock song that's totally a you song. You this, you got this problem. You got problems, mate. They're not my problems. I'm totally judging you for them. So he does sort of include himself in there at the end. But, which is a very clever H thing to do that actually makes the song have some wit to it. But she's got her hooks in you. You know, with the long nails on the cover of the single. I mean, it really is like...
Oh, yeah, that...
It really is very 80s AOR, and...
The single cover is...
And it's funny that it's not all the mellow stuff, or the ballads, or Holloway Girl, or or even the soft voice that freaked them out. This song is what freaked out Phish fans, because this is the song that, as your friend so stupidly said, but nevertheless...
Sorry, Mark.
Because it's not a good comparison musically, but this is the song that's the Foreigner song. If you're going to say, oh, you sold out, what did Phish say about it? Well, we were going for this certain sound, and it sounds like they were going for the sound of American dollars. Thanks, Fish. Thanks for chiming in.
Well, they never got the American dollars again, really.
Well, we could get to Fish, but Fish has got a big brass-filled Phil Collins, like,
right.
minute tune. Right. That was his, wasn't his lead-off single, to be fair to him, but it was a big single from his album that was supposed to be.
You know, just like Hooks and You,
they both really wanted to have a hit.
Right.
At the expense of the other. I mean, I think there's a natural competition going on here that can't be avoided.
Oh, definitely.
Even between us. Even between us who love both things. And both albums. Right. There's a competition that cannot be denied.
Which one is going to be better? This album or Fish's solo album?
And it's up for grabs because there wasn't a more successful one. They both sold about the same. None of their singles really hit. None of the videos were super popular. Right. They were back to being Marillion again, and Fish was back to being Fish, truly.
Yep.
They had this loyal following and stuff, and Marillion eased into that a little bit more gracefully than Fish did, but they really were back to the old days in a lot of ways. This album sold. This was a gold-selling album. We haven't even got to the last song yet, so I'm going to get ahead of myself. But, you know, Hooks and You, I am not a big fan of Hooks and You. So I'm skipping Hooks and You.
So, to me, it's either Hooks and You or Halloway Girl. Because I've never been a huge fan of Halloway Girl, but Hooks and You is a little bit more throwaway because there is a bonus track that they took off of this album.
Yeah, I would skip. That's the song I would actually skip. I know you really like that. I really like it too, but if that were in there, that'd be the song I would skip. I would not skip Hooks and You.
Are we talking Belle?
No. Belle's not on the album. After Me is on the album.
No. I know. But I would take Belle in the Sea and put that in.
Well, we'll talk about Belle in the Sea because that is the start of a run on a certain kind of song that they do keep doing. Yes. Which is weird. But the last song, we can't skip that. The Space, these big string synth patch strumming strings like a symphony orchestra. And if you want to see the Space, you know, they just did this orchestral album, and live, the Space is the one that really comes to life because it really was
made for a string.
It was really written for a string orchestra, even though they just did it as a band.
Yep.
And I've seen him sing it twice, and it's always the end of the song is this. It requires a ton of vocal dexterity. Yep. The song's always done at the end of a gig. It's never the third song at a gig. It's always the end of the first encore, the end of the proper set. So
when one would be really out of breath.
And just a little bit. So, but there's even when he sucks at it, and I have this recording that I really love, this live recording of him where he's in very bad voice. Yeah. But his powering through it is the fun thing about listening to that gig.
Nice.
I mean, when you own 100 gigs of theirs, it's like that. It's okay that one of them, like, he didn't have that great a night. You know, it was the end of the 601 tour in North America in Boulder, Colorado, is the concert I'm thinking of. So those of you who were at that Boulder show, congrats. Because I just think it's amazing. And he butchers it. And yet he just goes for it. And so I love it. And I always love the End of Space for that reason. Yeah, that's right. So we just got a visitor, sorry.
My favorite part of this is now knowing what, like a man in a tram crashing the car in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Because it's just a weird visual that once he explained it on that live show, you're like, oh, now I cannot unsee that. And it's just
and it's the next line, though. Let me just say, and then we'll get to the B-sides, but it's the next line that tells you what that meant to him. The car was slammed by a tram. Yeah, you did it. You're like this. You did it without knowing. You didn't feel a thing. You destroyed this thing thoughtlessly. Except he's talking about people.
Right.
And the metaphor is really, really powerful when you consider
just wrecked it and kept going. It's just so awesome.
And again, that everybody in the whole of the world, that's a little kumbaya, a little, you know, but it gets powerful to the heart of his philosophy of life, which is, and it's why I connect so deeply with the music, especially the music from this era, because it requires you and it begs you to see life from other perspectives and from other point of view, and to embrace that and to understand the way people are connected and to honor that. And The Space is a really powerful, with a really ugly sort of first chapter, it's a very powerful way to affirm that message.
Right.
And a fantastic closing track. To a very good album.
Amazing closing track. And like I said before, it makes you nostalgic for the album again.
Some people don't like it. I have a hard time.
I have a hard time thinking those people have intelligence.
Well, they're like, some people really don't like it. I'm not sure why. It's weird.
That's weird. No Marillion fan that I've ever talked to has spoke ill of the Space.
No, the Space is good. So the B-side to Hooks is After Me. This lovely love song.
There's a lot.
All these little things, lying on her jeans, a stray cat she feeds, all these things that she named after him because of her feelings for him. Although you feel like she's a little... There's the sense that the lady in the song is a little condescending to him somewhat.
Right.
As well.
Or maybe she wants him in his life just enough, but doesn't want to be tied down.
There's a lot of dynamics in it for a simple love song.
Right.
But he gets to the end of the point. He's like that, that feeling that you have when you're with somebody. He goes, that's what I'm going to name after you. It's a really well thought out lyric and a really lovely soaring Marillion song that starts out like a little guitar ballad.
Yeah. It starts out like a guitar ballad, but then it becomes so big. So big. And
I learned how to play that on the piano so I could sing it to my girlfriend at the time.
Nice. Good move. Good move.
It's pretty
That's
cool.
Smooth as eggs.
It's pretty cool. The ladies like Hogarth.
Nice.
I mean, well, that's one thing that really did change the dynamics in the band. Now, part of it is Marillion fans grew up, got married, and brought the ladies along.
Right.
So that's definitely part of the lifelong fans. That's happening, but there's
named their daughters Kaylee.
There's a femininity to H's approach to music that Fish simply really doesn't touch on very often. Even though there's moments, obviously, in Warm Wet Circles, and in this place or that.
Newer stuff too.
Yeah. Truly,
especially on the
but at the time, that was something that wasn't a part of the band, and you really, if you went to a Marillion gig in 1984, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find 1 in 20.
Yep. Now it's 50%.
Yeah, now I mean I don't want to go that far, but I mean it really is. Yeah, it's
a good split.
It is.
And
part of that is songs like After Me. They'll do that for you. Then the B-side to Uninvited Guest is Belle in the Sea.
The song that never should have not been on this album.
And everyone asked them, that song's so good, and everyone loved it so much, even at the time, that they're like, why isn't that on the album?
Right. They said it was too much of a yo-ho-ho and a bottle of rum kind of feel. And it is fantastic, and
it's the Belle in the Sea. It's the bell to the sunken ship. It's such a good song.
So good, and
how many songs have they written about drowning, about rowing, about being out in a ship, about being out in the ocean? The ocean's the middle.
They just freaking 20-minute song about
this. This is the first one.
It's the first. Okay, so
and that 20-minute song really is an extension, I think, of this. So it's kind of funny that at the time they were like, "Ooh,
yeah,
it feels piratey. It feels that." But that's what it was. It was them telling a sea shanty essentially. Mm-hmm. But think of what's the Procol Harum song, "Salty Dog."
Yeah,
it's like that. It's not that good, but it's really, really good. It is. And there's no reason that just because it's a sea shanty that you should have left it off your album.
They could have. So this is what I would
have made a great way to start the first side, for example. And then Berlin, and then the Space. Although Berlin,
you mean side 2.
Side 2, sorry.
Side 2. So I would have taken off Holloway Girl, put Belle in the Sea.
And I would have taken off Hooks in You.
And put in After You. But that's too, I don't know. Either way, the beautiful thing is, with these versions...
You can't take away Holloway Girl.
You haven't.
I hate you.
Yeah. Well, I know I don't want to take away Holloway Girl.
Go back and listen to it.
I will.
Listen to it on your new singles collection. Listen to it in that acoustic gig you like so much. So good. It's the lead off track in that concert we were talking about.
Oh, okay.
Final B-side is The Release, which is upbeat. Yeah. It's another love song, but it's an upbeat. Yeah. It's got this jingly bell sound, very 1989 bell sound sort of keyboard riff that the whole thing is built on, and it sounds a lot. Somebody pointed this out to me. I never thought of this, but when they pointed it out, I kind of can't hear it now. It sounds a lot like the lead-off track to the Division Bell album, Take It Back.
Really? I would have never.
And I was like, really? And then I listened to it, and I was like, yeah, it does. It does all the same stuff. It's not as good.
I like it.
The Marillion B-side is better than the Pink Floyd single A-side, by the way.
I like it, but after hearing Bell in the Sea, it's just like, I mean, if I'm going to have to pick, you know.
Yeah.
But.
Oh, right.
Yeah. It's good.
I would take off Hooks and You, and I would also put on Bell in the Sea. And I would put on Bell in the Sea in front of Holloway Girl is where I would sequence it if we're going to have fun with this game. Right. And then Holloway Girl, and then Berlin, and then The Space, and then just no Hooks and You, and no Foreigner, and Mark's happy, and everybody's happy.
And it still ends up or at
least everybody's giving it a more of a fair shake.
Right. Okay. Boom. We are done with the
because Marillion fans loved the Bell in the Sea. They loved it.
We are done with the first album of this set.
Criminy.
Oh God. Okay. Do you have a phone?
Or I do.
What time is it?
I don't know. I don't care.
Okay.
Does it matter?
No, it doesn't.
You just gotta keep going.
So we're gonna show you both sides of this because this was the American release version.
Yeah, that was a new Bill Smith Studio logo there, that MARILLION.
And that was the actual legitimate
which is the one you'll be looking at while we talk about this.
So, we have...
They both have that artwork in it, which was created by an artist. That's lovely artwork. The American release actually is sort of the better album cover because you can see what it is.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, you got this tiny little print there in this circle, which doesn't really tell you what it is.
Well, in vinyl, it would be nice. But
but as a CD on tape, and that's what was coming along. This is 1991 now. The year we graduated from high school.
Right.
Happy graduation, mate.
God, yeah, I know. The
Holidays in Eden.
I think this got released... Were we out of school already?
Yeah.
Okay. So
just out of school.
Because this was the first one you ever bought. First thing you ever heard of them.
In August of that year.
We're gonna talk about the British released version. There is the American version that has 2 extra tracks, and everything is out of order. So if
not everything.
Well, a lot. Everything. Well, the last 3 songs are in order. But
when you add in 2 tracks and you shuffle them in, and you change the opening side completely, you do change things. We were going to talk about the British version because even though they both have their strengths and weaknesses, the British version is on the whole better. And we're going to talk about it without bonus tracks first time through, because that's how we're doing this.
Yep. So it starts with...
But this is another album that had a couple of B-sides, not anywhere near as good as the season end B-sides, but are still pretty effing good.
Right. And one of them is a cover song.
Yeah,
which I am not.
That's
a
different.
Fan of covers.
That's different, but we'll get to that. That didn't come with this album.
Oh, it didn't.
It's from this era, but that came with their singles collection that came out a year later.
Okay, so this unlike.
Aren't you glad you had me here for this?
I am.
I'm just saying.
This unlike Season's End starts out, as you pointed out to me. That first album, we had to introduce the band, and then we get to the singer. This album is like, go at it, H. Just
deliberately. Now, this song, in its original form, in its low-fat yogurts form, and on the Ipanema Stoke Row, starts out very much with the band.
Right, and very much not anywhere near as good as this version.
Yeah, it's hard to say. This album was produced by Christopher Neal. Christopher Neal's Sheena Easton's producer in her early pop days. He was, at this time, the fit was that he was Mike and the Mechanics producer. So EMI really wanted Marillion to be more like Mike and the Mechanics. And actually this album is more like Mike and the Mechanics than the album that came before it, or certainly the one that came after.
The thing is with this album, the songs that are like epic and just have a lot of dynamics and stuff are nothing like Mike and the Mechanics.
No, and they're really, really well produced. So so Christopher Neal gets a lot
of credit.
No, he gets almost entirely the blame for this being
okay.
You love this album, so it's weird to talk about it in this context. But
favorite
Holidays in Eden, if you were worried about Marillion becoming Foreigner, is the album where that came true.
Cover My Eyes, which we'll get to.
Well, and No One Can. Right. And all of it, not just Cover My Eyes. Half the album is pop songs.
I know, and I'm gonna just say this right now so everybody this is my favorite album.
This was the first album
these four
that I ever heard, and it was I fell in love with them immediately. So I have the same sort of love affair with it as you. But we do have to point out that the prog heads, the Jester suit guys, the Grendel people,
they fucking hate it.
They really rebelled against this album. This was the one where it's like, there's a bunch of hooks and use on here.
This is the
album. What is happening?
This is the album that my buddy said was The Foreigner. Yeah. But
and so I was just giving him a hard time. But in this case, he would be right to a certain degree. He'd be right about half the time.
Right. But this is my favorite of the four that we're talking about tonight.
It's so damn good. It starts out with a song called Splintering Heart, which has this weird electronic gurgly thing going on. And again, it's not a synth drone quite. We'll get to more of those later. But it's got this gurgly thing that the vocalist is alone. He was alone on stage in the concerts to open the show. And then when the lights came up, the band was there playing when the song hit.
And the cool thing with this is maybe...
But that was their no, mate. Now this is your time to go out there. We did it the other way. We played it safe with these guys.
4 to 8 measures or something like that before vocals come in.
Yeah.
And it's just like, nope. You guys know who this guy is. You love him already. If you don't love him, screw you, kind of thing. It's just.
It also has the feel, at least when you see it live, you also has the feel of them shoving him out there and saying,
"Right,
these are your fans now. You got to get used to this." Yep. Because he was.
Don't Andrew Partridge us.
Get out there, mate. And it's God, Splintering Heart is so
but
cool.
Not as much as this. Sorry.
Yeah, but not as much as this.
When the band kicks in on this song,
it is a bit of an abrupt.
Cut. Awesome. It's so awesome. I'm going to swear a bit.
Well, and what they play, and there's piano, which is fun to hear. There's a different approach going on here that's very, very cool. And Splintering Heart's just not like a song. It's a Marillion song, but it's just not like songs you hear on other albums. I don't know. I don't want to be. Every artist is so cool and everything, but it just to me, I'm like, wow, this is just. Right. Where's this coming from? I mean, this is what prog rock's supposed to be.
How EMI said no, or IRS in the U.S., how they said, no, let's not have Splintering Heart, the opening.
They didn't say no.
What?
We'll get to that.
Oh, the band decided?
No, but this was not foisted upon them. The band wanted to connect with an American audience. The band wrote a bunch of pop songs, and they wanted to have hit singles. They couldn't write better hit singles than are on here. They just weren't hits anyway.
Right.
So so again, I'm sort of sticking up for Chris Neil. Chris Neil's a pop producer. They wanted to have a hit. They wanted another Kaylee. They wanted to keep the ball rolling. They've seen diminutive sales between albums. Right. They're still selling lots of albums. The record company's still happy, but they are wanting to get on the radio again and recapture some of that magic with the new guy.
Which is very much not the case with the next album.
Right. The next album's a response to this one. Right. Very much so. Yeah. Where they're not even trying.
Well, and Ian, I don't even think really liked. I think he complained about the drums on this. Didn't he have to...
Chris Neil, and this is the one thing where the criticism is legit. Chris Neil made him play a Ludwig set with his preferred drum sound instead of the big booming Tama deal that he...
But the drum sound on this is amazing.
Well, it's such a well-engineered album, isn't it?
So good.
Chris Neil's a top-notch pop music producer, and so it is cool sounding.
So good.
But when you hear Ian play these songs live, even the rockin' ones, This Town... Splintering Heart, you hear a man who feels slightly caged on the album in comparison.
Right. I can totally understand that.
When he plays live, he lets loose on those rockin' tunes.
I can understand playing a new set to record to. Oh God, I've done it before and it's awful.
Well, again, they brought him in. They want to experiment. They want to try things new. He did it, but he didn't like the results, and he was very happy to get back to his thing, obviously, and he thinks the songs sound better with him doing his thing on them, and it's hard to argue with that.
Well, Ian's just
maybe not every song, but even the way, and I want to jump to This Town, it's the last song, but even the way This Town starts in concert is it's an Ian fest. Right. It's this thing where rah, here we go. It's like the drums are roaring at the open of that song.
What did they call that song originally? Wasn't it?
What did they call it? It's on that video again. The Ultimate Gift?
Yes. Yep. Which is a line in the song.
Yeah, although they didn't really call it that. They that was a line from the song, and
kind of a working title.
It was an ultimate gift to the fans that they were getting to hear a new Marillion song. Okay. Was the idea.
Yeah. So Splintering Heart, if you don't like it, just give it up.
Splintering Heart is as adventurous, it's as proggy, it's frankly as dark and as powerful a sound as you're going to get out of the H-era Marillion. So yeah, if that doesn't do it for you.
I think that's why this connected with me so much, is because it has this song and another song called The Party that we're going to talk about.
One song away,
and
we're almost to the party.
They're very dark songs too,
yeah.
And
although The Party had a rep like Space, where half the fans loved it and the other half can't stand it.
Fools.
Don't tolerate it.
Fools.
I mean, not just don't like it, but like, oh my God.
Which is dumb, because it has, well, we're going to get to that. So we get Cover My Eyes, which is
the lead-off single from the album.
Right.
He said it last week, if you were waiting or wondering, or you still have this in your head, he said there's one song that actually does remind me of you two, and it's the beginning of this song. And it was said by more than one people at the time.
More than one people?
More than one people. Almost 2-person said it. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people said this. You know, that sounds like it sounds like a half-assed U2 thing, because he's playing like the Edge, and he's got that big delay.
Delays, yeah, very much.
And they were like, I don't know, all our albums have tons of that on it, and they really do. He's like, we figured, we don't think it's really been the start of a song before, or it's been quite as exposed as this. It's the only thing you hear at the beginning of the song.
Yeah, it wasn't inside a wash of other.
But again, you heard a lot. Not Foreigner this time. He's trying to be like U2, and H is trying to be like Bono.
And the vocals are light years above.
Chris Neal created this song.
Did he?
Like Ted Templeton more or less created
Van Halen?
No, What a Fool Believes. He these are producers who have this stuff, and they've got all this stuff. And Dave Meegan, the producer of the next couple albums, he's the best at this, where he just finds the stuff, and he's like, this kind of goes here, and this goes here.
Right.
And he gives it to them and says, what do you think?
Right.
And they're like, oh, that's great. Like that. You did all the work for us. This is the hardest part of being Marillion. Because we played 9 cool things. We have no idea what they are or where they go. Right?
Or where they are.
H said making this album was a lot harder because there was nothing finished. Right. And he felt like he was responsible for turning the stuff into songs. And he was finding out that he was really primarily responsible for that.
I will say,
which shows you that Fish must have been primarily responsible for it in the early goings as well.
Right. I'm sure he was like, hey, I'm going to have lyrics here and here and here, and But if this
is an architect of songs, and it's his to his
credit. Arranger, yeah.
He's an architect of albums. He really is. The structure is a big part of the thing, whereas Hogarth writes songs, and he, like you say, he sits down and writes from beginning to end, with a middle part and then a middle 8 and all the stuff that you need for a song. But he wasn't planning on doing that all himself, and he just found that the working with these guys was tough. But it is funny that before Neil came in, the 2 songs they created were Splintering Heart and This Town.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 songs that they kind of had in the bag that they created together. That's a different album.
It is.
Than this.
Well,
Cover My Eyes is a great pop song, though. It's really, really great. Again, it's a big, upbeat anthem. They still play it to close gigs and to
it's a great
to open encores and stuff. Yep.
I mean,
great sing-along. But it was made from a How We Live outtake called Simon's Car. I Love You More Than Simon's Car.
Really?
And this idea that Marillion had sitting there. And it was Chris Neal. It was Chris Neal that put those 2 ideas together and made a pop song for them. That was their lead-off single.
Wait, are you sure it's Simon's Car?
You're looking for it on the album? You're not going to find it there. You're not going to find it there. You need me for Simon's Car.
Oh, I thought there was another thing where he recycled.
Well, what do you got there? You have the...
I have the esoteric version. English Summer.
Yeah, they don't...
Okay. So,
that version, that's a great version of the album. Esoteric, thank you for putting that album out in a great way.
But actually, thank you for doing just about everything you put out. So
yeah, amen. Thanks for those of us who still buy media.
Yep.
So anyway, Cover My Eyes, fantastic.
Yep.
Cover My Eyes, parenthetical, Pain in Heaven.
the first thing I ever heard on this whole, I got the Cover My Eyes 12-inch single, which I still own. And I think The Party is the side. Yeah, so.
That's correct.
Yeah, so.
So you're off to the races.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, this is different. And then I flip it over, and then it's the dark.
Well, yeah. Well, Cover My Eyes is the song that you can play any old way. I've heard H just play it on the piano and sing it like it's a piano ballad,
right?
Like it's a quiet Sugar Mice like song, and it's still awesome. Right. So it really is a good enough pop song that you can do whatever you want with it, and it's great.
Well, and I think
it's great, like as an upbeat, fun acoustic song. It's like you say, it's a sing along. It's just awesome. Right. Whatever you do with it.
I think some of their best songs are ones that they can rearrange, like The Space, which everybody hates apparently.
No, I don't want to say everybody, but
you know what I mean.
It is hated vehemently by those who hate it.
I have a friend who was like, "Do you like the version of The Space where it's like, dun, 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 dun." We'll talk about that version later, but I love that version. I like when they rearrange things, and we'll talk about.
Anyway, here's a piano riff that I can't prove it, I guess, on an Etch-a-Sketch, but I'm quite certain that H wrote the beginning of The Party in a dark room by himself. How he kind of writes these sorts of things.
Okay, so we're on track 3 now. The Party.
We can't talk about Cover My Eyes all night long.
No, we can't. So
it's hard. Cover My Eyes is one of those songs where it's like you just got to hear it. You just got to sing it to really know it. It defies being broken down like some of these because it really is just a pop song that's awesome. Right. And what's awesome about it is it's catchy. You want to hear it again as soon as it's over. It's a pop song.
Right. And it has this.
It's a pop rock song.
Yeah, just the part that you can sing along with the most.
He lets the audience sing it in concert. You don't want to sing all that stuff. I started grinning from ear to ear. He's like, man, they're going to sing this every time. I never have to sing the hardest part of the song.
Yeah.
And he just kind of pulled the mic up to him.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, we're singing it. It's cool.
So, The Party is about a girl going to the party for the first time.
Yeah, and it's the imagery associated with going down to the basement and the way things smell and the way things feel and the adventure and the danger of it. And it really is. It really is. Although again, it's a narrative song, so he's telling you what's happening as opposed to being the girl in the story, which would be weird for a guy to do, but he does this coming up. But this is where it starts to some degree, because this is told with so much, even though it's told in third person, it's told with so much first person, like what she's experiencing. Like, this is a really, really powerful song. Plus it's haunting and dark and wonderful.
It's kind of got another, here's a exercise in can you get this all in one breath section where he sings took her to a garden, she could smell the soil and the trees and see the succulent light, the little fires in his eyes pulling shapes out of the night. He was enchanted. To sing along with that, you're just like, okay, did I take a long enough breath?
You better know that bit's coming.
Yeah, you better know it's coming.
Yeah, because you got to be ready for it.
So great. And just the phrasing that he does. And I've noticed when I'm doing vocals, the faster I sing things, the more interesting I can come up with stuff sometimes. You know, when you're not holding notes quite as long and or doing runs and things. And just I love when he does that. And
he's an incredible vocalist, truly. And this story is really, really cool, and the song is really awesome. He's taken advantage of in this party, although it's not a cliche in that sort of way.
Right.
The
fact that people don't like this song is beyond me. It just like goes right.
Well, it is a cliche. The girl that goes to a party gets in over her head and has this weird experience, and is it a dark experience or are you formed by it? There's a cliche aspect to it that people rejected at the time. Marillion doesn't sing about this kind of stuff. They don't sing about teenage girls. It's really funny because
the next,
but that was the take on the song at the time. I remember it very, very well. And I don't know if it was by a majority of people, but it was by a lot of people. Mm-hmm. That they didn't like the party. The party didn't redeem the pop album, even though it was not one of the pop songs, because it had this non-Fish sort of, although again, Fish Fish in Warm Wet Circles and Fish in other places really did write about that stuff.
Right. Well,
so he did it. So I don't know what they were objecting to. The party is really, really great.
I had to get on a pillow.
I understand. We're halfway through the second album. Only the second album.
Oh my God! Okay, we got to speed up.
No one can take you away from me now, depending on which album you look at. No one can, or no one can take you away from me now. This is pure mid-range pop love song.
You landed in my life.
It's got a fantastic video with this really beautiful, like, compass animation.
You want to know where I first saw the video? I was walking through Dayton's, and I just bought tickets at Ticketmaster. Come down. Bought tickets.
I feel like I saw this in Sears. Are you sure you weren't in Sears?
No, it was in Dayton's. I just got tickets, and I walked through Dayton's.
IRS Records is their record company. They're all EMI. This is a sub, but Capitol Records didn't do much with Seasons End in America.
Right.
IRS Records got them on this mall to play in front of teenage girls things, and they got them partly because this song is so radio friendly and so pop oriented for the time.
So you saw it at
I thought it was Sears, but I saw that video that they sent out to the malls.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that was the first time.
I couldn't believe what I
stopped. I just stopped. I was like,
although I was new to the band at the time, so even though I was like, wow, and part of me was like, hey, they're gonna make it big here or whatever. Like,
you were too naive.
I didn't get it. I hadn't suffered the way the other Marillion fans had up until this point. So.
He didn't know any better at that time.
I just didn't. But No One Can I'm not going to call it their best single because I think they've got other singles that are that have more Marillion personality in them and yet are equally good pop songs. But No One Can's it's really a fantastic love song.
It's a great song. And I mean, this is technically the album.
It's neither a ballad nor is it an upbeat song. It really is that mid-range, dare I say, Mike and the Mechanics sounding sort of tune.
But this is the album to get your girlfriend into Marillion on.
Yeah, it is.
And so...
my girlfriend at the time loved it, and my next girlfriend loved it too.
Who was my ex-girlfriend? What do we got here? Okay, No One Can. Okay, Holidays in Eden. The lighting back here is horrible.
I could have just told you. Holidays in Eden starts off the second side, baby.
This song shouldn't be as awesome as it is. It really shouldn't be.
Holidays in Eden, again, they accuse this of being a cliche. The cliche of the person who goes off in the Peace Corps or whatever to some other weird country and then comes back a changed person. Right. And no one cares about what they've experienced and they feel alienated from the world. And
it's so good. It's so good.
John Elmer primarily wrote this.
Really?
Yep, the lyrics. I don't know for sure on some of them, but this one I do know. He's basically the author of the title track. This happened to a person he knew.
Really?
More or less.
And, I've never paid attention tons to the lyrics on this song until like the last time and just realized how good every line in this song is. It's just, but
Elmer's a good writer, and this is an upbeat song. It's not exactly a super proggy song, but it's on the more adventurous side of the songs on the album. It's not a
pop hit though. It's too...
No, had they been having a bunch of hits, maybe this could have been the fifth hit or something, but
it's too I guess not dark, but it's too unhappy to be a hit.
It's a sad tale.
Yeah. Yep. But very good. Very good album.
But very, very good. And a great way to start the second half because it's upbeat. It's got this long sort of intro with lots of sound effects and stuff. And Holidays in Eden, that's a great title. That's what they called the album for good reason. And the lyrics are outstanding, and it's a very fun song.
Some great guitar playing too. Well, we don't even need to mention.
Nah, we'll try and pull out spots, but they all have great guitar playing.
They have all great guitar playing.
The Marillion songs that have the guitar on it are really, really played well.
Yeah,
we can just say that and be true almost every time.
That pillow is uncomfortable.
Even on my least favorite Marillion song of all time, there's a part in it. It's like, this is awesome. Why is that on this song?
Oh my God, we are gonna get to that, and
not tonight.
Oh God, that song sucks.
That's not even it. That's not my least favorite. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Okay, so look, next song is Dryland, right?
Yeah.
The title track to the How We Live album.
Yep.
So he had written this song with How We Live called "You Don't Need Anyone," and Chris Neil loved it. Again, he loved it because it's a pop song. It's written about a girl. It's telling her, you know, she doesn't need the magazines. She doesn't need all this stuff. All she needs is me. All you need, baby, is me. So it's pop song all over it. It's actually a very catchy, fun song. It's got a great keyboard riff that H wrote back in the How We Live days that Mark, like, just rips, like, in its great way. Very fun song live. They only played live a few times. But that was the song everybody wanted, and it was Hogarth. It's his song, and it was him who was like, it's not.
No.
That the lyrics like this, they're really going to reject this, and they're kind of right to. This isn't in the shape it needs to be for this band. This isn't good enough for them. This, hey baby, get your head out of the magazine thing. Like, this is, I was having fun when I wrote it, but it
kind of sounds like a Fish lyric.
It's not for, it isn't. You don't need anyone's a great song. It's on here, actually. So you should listen to it sometime. A live version of it. It didn't get a studio version. He basically didn't want to,
well, I could just listen to this version too, right?
Wait, is it on there? No, it's not on there.
What's the song called?
You Don't Need Anyone.
Oh, okay.
It was You Don't Need Anyone, Simon's Car. These were all written thinking there'd be a second How We Live.
Right. Oh, okay. So
they are How We Live versions of them out in the world, but they're not on that thing.
So he brings Dryland to him.
Well, he didn't. Dryland was not his idea. Dryland was in the Red Bucket, where we found Easter and some other gems, and half of Cover My Eyes. So they went digging in the bucket, and when Chris Neil heard Dryland, and Dryland came out, it was a hit. Dryland on the Dryland album sounds exactly like Dryland on the Marillion album, with a few distinctions, but it's
a little bit different. Way better on the Marillion version.
Well, I don't know if that's true. You can say it's way better, but it's so much the same that you can't have the Marillion version without having done all of that work first on the Dryland version.
But if you were going to pick,
I don't know. I mean, they're the same. They're really the same. The keyboard riff's the same. The only thing that's different is the guitar solo.
To me, this version of Dryland.
This version's a little faster. That helps the song. Gives it a little bit extra energy. But they're the same song.
Right. And great lyrics, too.
If they'd have reinvented the thing, and it was awesome, and I would say, oh, the Marillion version. Yeah. But they don't get credit for 70% of the shit they're doing on that song. They get no credit for it at all. I mean, and the 30% they did different is better, but
it was already a great song.
It's a great pop hit. It was the title track to the How We Live record.
How about, can we say they polished it?
Oh, they did.
They did polish.
Well, and Chris Neil did.
Right.
And he just knew. Like on the Dryland version, the first chorus is only a half chorus. They do away with that here, which is very smart because you need the whole chorus. You don't want a half chorus. That's stupid. I hate half choruses.
On the next song, I'll tell you how they should have just taken the whole chorus out.
Hey. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, Dryland's great. It's a great song. It has a great video. H is very, very sexy, and I don't think he's ever been sexier. They poured a bucket of water on him in this white shirt, and he just kind of looks seductively into the camera and sings the song while the band's all playing someplace else. They're like outside somewhere in the fields playing. I love Dryland. I mean, I really, really like it, but like I said, it's I don't know that I don't know. I love Dryland.
Wait, what were you going to say? You don't know if it
is by all respects a cover song, and it is.
I mean, it's not a cover song like Todd La Torre singing Jeff Tate era Queen.
No. But it was a finished song that they took from H's album 2 albums ago.
Right.
But people who were involved on it on that album weren't super happy about it.
Well,
the song wasn't a big hit.
There's one guy in the band that...
Well, actually, he was down with it. There's got a couple of writers, and showing up on it being on that album was one thing. It showing up on Marillion album,
right,
without maybe all the proper credits in place was a bone of contention.
All right, got a belt digging into my gut.
We've been sitting here a while. We both have the guts to prove it.
Yep.
It's a good song. I like it a lot, but. It's anomalous.
This is the video.
And if people
are like, did he take off his belt? That's right. Fucking belt's digging into my gut.
What have I gotten myself into? Right. I said I would do like 7 more of these.
Yeah, you did.
All right, look.
Hey, I don't have my hand on you.
Dryland's great. The next song is a power ballad, I guess, in Marillion style, but a power ballad, very quiet versus very loud chorus. Right? Yeah. Power ballad called Waiting to Happen.
Amazing lyrics. They do a acoustic version on the singles collection where they take out the whole first chorus, and honestly, it's a more powerful song like that to me.
I would agree, although you have the benefit of having heard it the other way, and I do think that that version without the chorus, when you know it's there, that's part of its power, honestly.
Is that you're like, oh.
It's the build and the anticipation and the little reversal that it does on you.
Yeah.
And how good it works that way. I think it's a long time to wait for a chorus when you don't already know what the chorus is.
Right. Yeah, okay. I'll give you that.
But you're not wrong.
So
it's another variation on it that takes us by surprise and works gloriously.
Right.
Waiting to Happen was another song where they were kind of playing it, doing it, and Chris Neil was... They're playing a pop song, and they just really nurtured that song.
Yep. Lyrically, just beautiful. I mean, if you wanted a love song for your significant other, it's...
And it is. H is very much in love with his long-suffering wife that he was married to a long time on this album, on How We Live. Even his little moments on Season's End, like there are love songs.
Right.
That I don't remember the last time Marillion had a love song on an album because there's not a lot of love going on.
He got divorced, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
I know that's way in the future of the band and all that, and we aren't even going to talk about that. The point is, I loved the love songs. You obviously do too, which I sort of find surprising as a metalhead. Right. I just didn't think you'd be... I thought this would be the last album that you would like if you just asked me in a vacuum.
Really?
Well, because that's the people who wanted the rockin' stuff, the people with the longer hair who wanted the more rebellious, adventurous prog shit were super disappointed by it.
Yeah, I loved this album since...
Waiting to Heaven's a glorious love song, but it is the fourth that we've come to.
Fourth love song. So what do we have? So we got Cover My Eyes... Dryland.
No One Can.
No One Can. Wait.
And Waiting to Happen.
Yep. Okay. So.
And then the final song on the album, which is a trilogy, sort of. I always call it's like a trilogy, like Warm Wet Circles is like a trilogy, except Hotel Hobbies is the middle part of this trilogy.
Right, but if you're listening, if you're listening to Hotel Hobbies, Warm Wet Circles, and That Time in the Night all together, there is a section in the middle of those three songs that is very much like the section of Rake's Progress.
Yeah.
So
you're not wrong.
If you're not looking at the track markers, you would think it's set.
And you shouldn't be because you can't. This isn't
right.
If you put this on shuffle and you only hear Rake's Progress and you only hear the end song, you did it wrong. It's one whole song with three separate sections and maybe even more than that. It had this great on the Stoke Row video. The early guitar part is great, but he stopped doing that and just made it a rock riff, and I think that's a great way for this town to start. And as I said, I think that starting with drums live is even a better way for it to start.
When it starts out with like... it's just like
it's a great rocking song. It's as good as it's almost as good as they get when they're just rocking out.
Right.
And the great thing about it is only the first part of the song, so they get to do these other things that hardcore Marillion prog heads are going to still be into by the time it's over.
And this town starts out very much in that kind of incommunicado feel.
Yeah.
Almost. So
yes.
There's another hearkening back.
But it's dark. This is H is taking this is a song of empathy. He's putting himself in this villain sort of shoes.
Right.
This vacuous, kind of terrible person. I mean, it really is a song from a...
But do you think it's... Well, it becomes a person, but it starts out basically saying how this town is...
This town takes us down.
Yeah, it starts out with the town and then goes to a focused, very personal kind of thing and ends with some of the greatest lyrics.
Yeah, that he's done.
Four greatest lyrics that basically tell you point blank what is happening. There's no cryptic message behind it. You know,
and yet
exactly.
And that sounds like it should be easier than poetry or abstraction. Right. But I don't know that it is. I think it's very, very difficult to cut to the chase of something.
Yep.
And just say it and have it still be appropriately... In this case, it has to be climactic, it has to be dramatic, it has to be musical, it has to be all those things. And it is all those things.
Right. And it's very powerful, too.
It's a stunning way to end an album full of I Really Love You Baby songs.
Well, so let's...
It knocks you out.
Let's break it down. So we got This Town, which is...
a guitar rocker.
Rocker. And then it goes into this very brief track called
Rake's Progress. This is based off a piece of fine art, I believe.
Oh, really?
They just stole the name because they thought it was cool. It doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but that's a name of something.
And, well, I mean, it's very
progression piece of art.
Right.
Fine art.
But it's very fitting, I think, for the lyrics because he sings, what will you do when your roots are dissolved and broken down?
That's so good.
And the best line is, and you list all the qualities that you despise
and realize you're describing yourself. Boop, 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 boop. And that keyboard part that comes in. It's bass and synth together, and it's stunning.
So great.
And live when that shit's kicked way up in the mix.
Yeah.
It really, it's boop, 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 boop. It comes in, and you might not like that because it's overwhelming. But it's like, this song's going someplace else right now. I
don't mind overwhelming bass or low end, but when it...
Only if it's 2.5 minutes on the remaster.
But here's the thing. This doesn't suffer from being too...
The live version of This Town and Rake's Progress, and it's gone through some permutations through the years, it's great on the record. I really, really like it. It's very detailed and wonderful. It sounds great. But the best parts of the song are there, and they're buried in the mix. The drums are tame relatively. There's things where somebody who appreciated Marillion in these moments a little bit better would have gotten more out of this piece.
Right. I mean, I love this
even though
version.
compositionally it's fantastic.
I love this version, and I think it's super powerful. But yeah, I've watched some and listened to some that
I argued with some dork online just endlessly. I should have just been like, "Well, I'm arguing with a dork online." But this is the early days of online, so you thought you could reach them,
right? Yeah.
But they were convinced because of the I wake up in the mirror sometimes and don't see myself that this song was about vampires, and I'm like, it is to the degree that that's a metaphor for that the guy's kind of a vampire, but no, it's not actually about vampires. And you're just trying to make someone understand that. No, can't see his reflection. Vampire.
The thing is,
vampires, ladies and gentlemen.
So we're on the 100 Nights section, right? So last part, 100 Nights, talks about.
It's funny because that vampire part of the song is really pretty. It's like this little break in the song. It's kind of happy sounding.
Well, what does he sing?
That doesn't matter. We can't do the whole song for them.
But
we're almost halfway through the show.
This is what I got from it. He's basically talking about what time is it? Just tell me what time it is.
8:45.
Oh, Jesus Christ. This is going to be the longest freaking video ever. So he basically is talking about
we could shut the video off and then do another video so they don't have to sit through so long to get to the second album. I think it's still the same show. We can still do the show tonight while we're hot.
Right.
But maybe at the end of Holidays in Eden, we'll take a break. Do a different video and premiere them at the same time or a day later.
We can do that.
That way, it's not because I feel like it's not going to get better for the next two albums. It's only going to get, especially the next one. Right. We're only going to get more into the weeds, the details, and I think if we've got anything to offer, it's that.
Yep.
That's what's of value. Otherwise, that song's awesome, and this song's awesome.
Right.
And that song is also awesome.
Okay, so let's go to 100 Nights. So the way I think of it,
100 Nights is awesome.
He's talking about the business world and how you're trying to succeed, and while you're trying to succeed, you're losing everything that you have in your life.
Kind of.
And I've always thought H as the guy who the girl is cheating on, because he sings, you didn't notice me when I passed you on the stairs, how could you ever forget by looking at my face? But he says, she spends your money on me.
So the final words of the song.
Final words of the song, she spends your money on me.
While you're out there succeeding, there's something you should know.
Yep.
While you're out there winning.
So, he's almost, because do we feel sorry for the guy that's getting cheated on? I've never felt sorry for the guy who's getting cheated on in that thing. I've always been like,
the problem. I don't know that's
like
it's not meant to make you feel sorry. The whole thing is ugly and demeaning and awful, and it's said with something of relish and yet something of shame. The guy who's doing the cheating, the guy who's this weird business guy is just some guy. The guy who's doing the cheating is the guy from the beginning of the song. This town has destroyed. And that he's let destroy, really, because it's on you.
And he's become what he despises.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And he's saying that with some relish, but there's shame in it.
Mm-hmm.
and it's shameful and it's ugly. So I don't know that it's, oh, I feel so sorry for the guy who's his girlfriend sleeping on him. That's not the point of it at all. The point is, you feel awful. You should feel awful about all of it. Her, him, the other guy, everything. It just ends in a terrible place. And it doesn't feel like there's any redemption for any of these people.
I love it. That's what I love about this. It's a super dark end. And I can't remember. This also ends with kind of like a Season's End, like with a 7/8 section at the end.
Yep.
They loved their, hey, let's just do an outro. We got this little riff here.
It's the end of the album. Yeah. I mean, this is a great place for it. The Season's End's the end of the side. Yeah. But, I mean, this is a great place for that. Because you don't, live, they don't do a lot of that. Live, they slam the door on the end of this song. Yeah. And that's cool, too. So it works both ways. But I love and I love just, again, because you need to go, ugh.
Yep. Makes
before the bonus tracks start playing in my iPod.
Makes me nostalgic. Do you like when albums have bonus tracks after everything? Like,
yeah, I mean, if they're one disc.
No, but you would rather have them 2 discs, wouldn't you?
Yeah, on the second disc if they can be, but if you fill up both discs, I'm not going to complain that there's extra songs on the first disc.
But I'm talking about like King Diamond, Abigail. I'm listening to that, and I'm just like, after the Black Horseman, I shouldn't have to turn it off.
These are the things we care about.
One or 2 songs extra.
I don't like it, but I like extra songs. And in this case,
he does. He would get way more upset. You would get way more upset if they didn't have them at all.
Well, if your version of Season's End, at this point, if your version of Season's End doesn't have Belle and the Sea on it, I mean, do you want it? That's Season's End. That's part of the Season's End experience.
Speaking of which...
Or if your expensive 5.1 book version of Fugazi doesn't have Cinderella Search on it, then you've effed up. Or if you have to put it in the video desk and go find it in a sub-menu to play it.
Yeah.
So, it's weird closing the album with Cinderella Search because Fugazi closes the album so perfectly.
Right.
And we can get clever and kind of put them in our little place where we think they go. I mean, that's up to us. We bought the album. We get to do that. But from a purity standpoint, no, I don't like it there. But that song goes with Fugazi. Damn it.
Right.
And that's the priority. And if I gotta live with something else playing at the end that's a little asynchronous, I'll take it.
Well, it should have been on one of those bonus tracks or bonus.
It's on the DVD of the book, but it's
DVD though. That's the only place it's on, which is bullshit.
Which is fine. I mean, if you're buying a DVD set with 5.1 on it anyway, you have the tools to play it. Right. The point is, that makes the set undefinitive, and it absolutely blows the song off. When Genesis did all their shit in 5.1, they did all the B-sides in 5.1. Right. And there's a bunch of A-sides in there. Paper Late's not a B-side. You know what I mean? They had to do it all. And good, they did it. And now, even if it's overkill, now we can't sit and complain about it.
Right.
Because they did it all. You know what I mean? There are 9 different versions of Blade Runner. And you can watch all of them. They're all out there for you. If you want to go watch the version of Star Wars that you saw in the movie theater in 1977, you cannot watch it unless you're doing something illegal. And it's not so much that that's ridiculous, because that's a movie show Joel and Ryan question.
Right.
It's that what solves it is here. Here's all of it.
Yep.
Now, nobody can complain. You can argue about the differences, you can do this or that, but you don't just sit around going, this only version of this I can buy without the something I want isn't here, and I'm mad. Yeah. And that rage, folks, in the world we live in today, is very real. So
the rage is real.
The rage is real, so, what are you going to do? B-sides.
B-sides.
Collection. This is creepier than this town. In 2.5 minutes. This is the creepiest thing they ever wrote, probably.
It's fantastic, though. And it sounds like a love song until you pay attention to the lyrics.
That's right. It sounds like a lovely little acoustic... Oh. It's an outtake for sure. It's this little, quiet little song, but it's the story. I don't know if it was Helmer's story or Hogarth's. I can't remember who was the primary constructor of this lyric. But whichever it was, they heard the story of this guy who had all these, and this is less nefarious than this. The song takes this a step further into almost serial killer territory.
Right.
But the idea was this guy just dated all these women, and he took them all to this exact same spot and took this picture of them in this exact same spot. So we have this pile of photos that were different people who didn't know each other.
It's so serial. It feels very Buffalo Bill.
But in the case of what inspired the song, it's just that. This dude just was weird and liked this place, and he just took this picture. He didn't murder any of them or anything.
My favorite part on this song, I love this song.
The song doesn't even imply that he does, but it's creepy. It's you're part of my collection.
Pin you down. That's the line that always makes me go, what? But
truly.
In this song, and I think this song should have been on the album. In the U.S. version, it is. So we grew up with it, and there is a spot where
it's weird. It's hard to find a place for this to coincide. Both B-sides are in between the album flip on the album, right?
Yeah, because this ended side 1, didn't it?
That sounds right.
I think it ended side 1. But
it's worthy of the album. Their B-sides are worthy of being on the album, but this one is on this particular album with these 4 pillars at the starts and ends of sides of sort of prog rock and the pop songs in between-ish. The first sides depends on which version you're looking at.
But it was an undercover kind of creepy love song.
It's a great song.
And there's a guitar part where he goes, you can hear it go, beep, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, I bet you that was him either pulling his hand off or hitting something that he shouldn't, and then let's leave it. And I always listen for it. It's so great.
That willingness to let that sort of thing slide, and then how it enhances the meaning of the song musically is neat.
So good.
Because something's off about this song.
Yep, something is so off. But it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
And we talked about, which I consider a B-side, because even though it's only been released in a live version and much, much later, You Don't Need Anyone, to me, is a very Marillion-y, B-side-y sort of thing. We've already talked about that.
Right.
It's down here someplace.
Yeah. The How We Live song.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. And then what do we get?
And then How Can It Hurt, which is sort of Hooks and Huey-ish.
Yeah. Well, and I still...
How Can It Hurt's a great B-side, song. But it's if you're going to say, well, is it worthy of being on the album? Maybe not.
No.
It's not as nearly as good as the
What song would you take off?
It's only a B-side, though.
What song would you take off this?
Well, I'd take Dryland off and put You Don't Need Anyone on, properly produced by Chris Neal, who was enthusiastic about it. Not that I don't love Dryland, because I really, really love it.
Okay, let's say you can't even choose that one. You have to choose from How Can It Hurt or
a collection. Yeah. I wouldn't take anything off the album for either of those songs.
No.
If you make me, I can try and do it, but I don't see the point in that. They're not the 8 songs that are on Holidays in Eden are right where they belong, and they're fantastic. And what I do like, the U.S. version, we won't talk about this too much, but since this show is now going to end in a few minutes, you guys can probably handle a little bit more.
Thanks for sticking in.
Yeah, thank you. And we have to talk about the 6 of 1 albums. Those go here.
Okay.
They're on here. Sympathy and such.
Oh, yes.
I don't know, I lost my train of thought completely. Oh. No, I lost it. It's gone.
We were talking about... Oh, you're going to talk about the American version.
Oh, yeah, the American version starts out with Cover My Eyes because that was the lead-off single, and it's a great way to start an album. Their singles collection that came out the year later starts out with that. It's a great start.
Especially if you're trying to make a hit in the U.S.
Yeah. So, and that's all IRS was saying. They didn't insist upon it. Matter of fact, it's on this remaster. It's a really cool version of the song. Mike Stone, who produced Queen and produced Journey's big hit albums and many other people, the IRS brought it to him and said, hey, remix this song and see what you can do with it.
Right.
They didn't want to...
the
Mike Stone remix.
Okay. Is it on there?
It is. It must be.
No.
It isn't. How can that not be on there?
There's an acoustic version.
It's on your singles collection, mate. Now you're glad you have it. Go listen to that. It's different. It's beefier.
Oh, it's on my vinyl. It's on my vinyl.
Sure
too.
it is.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, it's on the vinyl of the Sympathy single. So it came out. They released it later.
Oh, did they?
But the point was they remixed it. The band said, no, we don't mind leading off the album with it, but we really prefer the version that we did. And the IRS said, cool. So they were working with them. They were asking them things. Can we do this? Can we do that?
Right.
Can we put bonus tracks on it so all the Marillion fans in America who actually already own this album a few months ago will buy it? That was it wasn't a collection so great. It's got to be on the album. It really was.
Hey, let's give them.
If we give them a little bit, we give them a little bit more, and we give it a little bit different, then they'll buy it again.
Right.
Like Japanese bonus tracks, very much like that. Although these would be the best Japanese bonus tracks ever.
Right.
Because Japanese bonus tracks are mostly a ripoff.
Right.
But but they are there for a very viable economic reason that Japanese record companies have proven work.
Right.
Because Japanese CDs cost a lot of money, even in Japan.
Yep. But they always come with lyrics. Even if the album originally didn't come with lyrics. That's what I love about the Japanese versions.
Hey, we could get into Japanese versions, man.
Universal Japan is
we could totally get into it. Anyway, that's the sort of differences. The one thing I like, and my version of Holidays does this, and I told Dave, I don't mess with track listings, even if I think I could do it better. It's a fun discussion, but I don't mess around with it. The reason I feel like I can with Holidays in Eden is because they did. There are two different versions of this album, so I can sort of meld them if I want. My version of Holidays in Eden starts out with Splintering Heart. My God, it has to, because Splintering Heart loses its power anywhere else you put it.
Yep.
It has to be first. That's where it belongs.
I mean, it's a great song wherever you put it, but if you want
it's the first song. I mean, even in concert, nobody's heard it. They haven't bought the new album. You play it first, and it's powerful, and it doesn't matter, because whatever you play first, everybody's happy to see you.
Right.
First, it really is a place where you can do some fun things if you want. It doesn't, you can't. Eventually, if you crowded house, you got to play Don't Dream It's Over.
Right.
You got to fit it in there somewhere. You may not want to anymore, but it's too bad for you. You got to do it.
Splintering always has to come first, and the last three always have to go last.
Yeah.
There's no other place for those.
Or they have to at least feel like an opening to something or an ending to something in some way.
Right.
And on this album, they absolutely are the opening and closing tracks. But I always go Cover My Eyes.
After Splintering Heart.
Which is where it goes.
Right.
But I put No One Can after that, before the party, and I close the side with the party, because I think that's a great side closer in a way that No One Can after the party is whiplash emotional.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so I kind of don't like the love songs being mixed up. I do it like the second side, where they're both right next to each other in the middle of the side, and they mirror each other, just like Season's End does, if you take out the bonus tracks.
Yeah.
So that's minutiae. I'm sorry, but if you know these albums really well, think on that. What is it? You have permission. They've given you, whether they know it or not or like it or not, they have given you permission to play with this a little bit,
make a mix CD.
There's more than one version of it out there, and when they do that, and they open the door to that, I highly recommend you create your own. You try to stay true to the spirit of what they did.
I recommend anybody listening to this that knows this album enough to give us your list. Yeah.
Do you like it? I mean,
right.
Because I bought it. I heard Cover My Eyes first. It was the first Marillion song I ever heard.
Right.
Cover My Eyes.
God dang. That's just crazy.
And I was like, this is great. This is great. It was 91.
Vocally,
I was like,
did you know what you were getting into vocally?
No. I never heard anyone like him.
The first thing he sings is the
Pain. Yeah. And Heaven, yeah. And Pain and Heaven.
That's the part that he lets the audience sing. He's like, screw it.
He sings it at the beginning, but at the end, where he's got to kind of close out the song with all that, he just lets them do it.
Right.
It's awesome. And it was more than that. He lets them do it, and it was like, he had this look on his face, like he's looking at other guys, like they're really gonna just do this the whole time. Like we can hear them,
right?
And I don't have to.
So
I don't have to sing any of the super high shit that I sang on the record. Like, woo!
And his voice is still so good to this day. You can. Well,
his voice, because he sings on his break, and because he has a low voice that's supported well by his breathing.
Right.
Like, he even went, at this time in his life, too, it was right around this album or the next one, he went to a vocal coach and said, hey, am I doing this right? I mean, I want to do this for the rest of my life. He really he'd seen people breaking down, and he was like, I don't know. And especially at that his voice really broke down at the end of the North American tour of the singles collection when they came over here, which was just more Holidays in Eden, basically.
And that's what
I have a recording of that.
Did you see that, or you were afraid to see
that was the first bootleg I ever got, and it was a soundboard bootleg. Okay. So it was on tape, and I put it in, and it wasn't just some jackass singing along with all the songs with the camcorder in his pocket.
Which is good. Oh god.
It was a soundboard recording, and it sounded amazing. Splintering Heart starts it, and it sounds amazing. And Splintering Heart, it does this on the album too, dun, 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 as it's kind of fading out, and you hear that door go ka-choom.
Right.
Live, it's not fading out. And it goes whomp, and it just shatters the glass in the building, and it just stops. The thing stops dead in its tracks. It's such a great thing. And to feel that, listening to this tape in the middle of the night in my college dorm room, and this band that I was falling in love with, and to hear the song reinvented like that. And then, like on the second side of my tape, hearing the intro with the drums to This Town, and I was like, huh, this is amazing. Like, they really are a prog band. Like, I get it now.
Right.
I get it. And
but to think of them as a prog band from this album, I mean, you only have like
there's no splintering. I mean, even though they can get adventurous time, there's no splintering heart on any Mike and the Mechanics albums.
No.
I mean, there is adventurism to this band in a big, big way. Right. And there is weird delicacy and there is strange dynamic shifts and all that stuff still happens here. But it does have 4 really, really strong pop songs on it.
Yeah.
The singles were really, really strong. No One Can is such a good single. They released it as a single again when they put twice. When it's the only song they ever did that. When they put the singles collection out, they're like, let's try again. Maybe they just missed it. Surely they will love this song.
Right.
And Marillion's like, yeah, do it. Because we can't give you a better radio hit than this. This is as good as it gets.
If we want to break the United States, this is our best.
They almost never do that live anymore because Ian really gets bored playing that song. But it's and he has some say. They are an equal partnership.
Right.
That's what you hear when you hear this. So real quick, Sympathy. They were doing a singles collection. It's called the singles collection in Europe. It's called 6 1/2 Dozen the Other in North America.
Right.
It really is 6 Phish songs and 6 Marillion without Phish songs with really only
H.
With H, which is kind of lopsided when you think of the history of the band at this point.
Right.
But they have 2 new songs, again, to help sell the album.
So besides Sympathy, what was the other one?
I Will Walk on Water.
Oh, okay. Which is on here.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
although the version on here is not the version that was on...
No, it's not. It's,
but the version on your singles collection, which is called the 5-inch mix, which is slightly different than the album version, is basically the album version. And that's the one to listen to.
Again.
So if you're looking for the definitive version, I Will Walk on Water, and you don't want to buy the singles collection, which is a completely redundant album at this point, the singles collection is where you find what's called the 5-inch mix of that song. And it's also on the either the Sympathy singles were a double single set or the No One Can singles were also.
Wait, so you're saying that is redundant at this point?
No, that you need.
No, that you got to need that.
If you're a Super Marillion fan, you got to have the singles collection. That's got the same mastering as this, and it's got everything. It's got everything that was ever released on any singles, plus some stuff that was left over.
We'll show you.
And there's a Phish era version of this too that you don't have, which is stunning.
But it has all of those, and the key is the Dryland CD6, which has a full acoustic show.
The Borderline Acoustic Gig, they called it.
And it is fantastic. That's where you get Waiting to Happen.
This was the era of MTV Unplugged and the acoustic stuff, and so there's a lot of that going on, and the B-sides and stuff of these albums.
And unfortunately, this goes for stupid money now.
That's too bad.
But I got this for $12.75.
Yeah, it was only missing one disc.
It was missing
a disc. But it had the label.
Had the little thing in it. So, and they're all little miniature sleeves and whatever.
Yeah. You've seen these single collections before, I'm sure.
But he has this, so he burned me a copy of it, so I was able to have it in there. I Will Walk on Water.
I Will Walk. What's that song about? H was like, I don't know. Actually, they asked Mark Kelly, and he's like, I don't know, he was just dreaming or something. We're not really sure what that's
really? Yeah.
It really is just these weird images of this keeps changing. It's like a dream. Now he's doing this, now he's doing that. It's a fun rocking song for a Marillion rocker. It's very underrated because it kind of doesn't have a home. Even Sympathy was a single. So that shows up here and there. Right. Whereas I Will Walk on Water, I mean, they played it live like 4 times ever.
Well, the nice thing with Sympathy is that's a cover song by Rare Bird.
Yeah.
So apparently they were in a cafe or a bar,
tavern,
and they had the jukebox
in the corner.
Like, hey, let's listen to Sympathy. And they put it on and decided to cover it.
I don't think the band put it on. I think somebody else chose it in the jukebox, and they heard it and were like, this is a really good song. I forgot about this song.
And
because it wasn't like it was even some runaway hit even in England. It wasn't a hit at all in America.
Well, no. I mean, it was by a band that had 2 keyboardists, a drummer, and a bass player who sang. Yeah. And the keyboardist is the keyboardist from who is in Spinal Tap.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
but there Rare Bird indeed.
There are 2 different versions too. There's the acoustic version and then the full-on band version, which is super powerful. And if you know the original, it follows it. It's a pretty faithful cover.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's a very simple, wonderful song, so reinventing it isn't helped. But the Marillion sound is grafted on it.
Right.
It's fantastic. I mean, it in a way, it's some of these, it's a blessing. You know, if you really think about it, if No One Can had been a big hit, would the albums we got next happen? If Sympathy would have been a big hit, would they have had to do 4 more covers for their next 4 singles? Like, you just got to kind of think, in a way, Destiny treated them the way they deserve. Their loyal following that they have is enough to keep them in business, keep them happy.
This album shaped everything that comes next, too.
It did. And for that, we'll come back.
We're going to let you guys go.
Holy smokes, right?
We're making this two videos.
What are you calling these when you name them? Complete Marillion, Complete Discography. And the last one was called Part 1, right?
Part 1 of 5, I believe.
So we can call this 2.1.
Well, we'll put Part 2A.
Nah, I don't want it.
2.1?
Yeah, let's do it like Computer Nerds. That's what Marillion would want. 2.1.
It's what Marillion would want.
And then we'll call the next one 2.5.
Right.
Because why not?
Okay.
Or we'll figure that out, but let's definitely do it numerically.
We will. All right, here we go.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.